Can you hear me? Geppetto's puppet. We need your help.
Hey, what's up, comrades? So, I just started playing Lies of Pi, which is a Souls-like game from um, just over a year ago, I want to say. Yeah, I think so. So, thus far, it's pretty good. It's gonna be one of those things. Normally, I go through like the plot a bit by bit, but I'm just gonna recount my tales, my journey, I guess, because it's in the traditional Souls-like style, specifically like the Dark Souls games. There is a like story or like a history to be told of the world in which the game takes place, and this one does have a bit more story than um, has a bit more of like a driving story, I should say, than your like traditional like From Software game. But it's still pretty like, hey, look, things are crazy. Good luck. Adios. So the main character gets awoken by a blue butterfly, right? Which is like the blue fairy. Oh, so the Lies of Pi is Pinocchio, right? It's the Pinocchio story. And the game even, I can't remember what his name is, like Carlos something, I think, acknowledges, it's like, oh, thank you for the good work of the guy who wrote Pinocchio in the first place. Um, anyway, so the main character is not specifically named Pinocchio at this point, but he's awoken by this blue fairy in the form of like a blue butterfly that comes and like lands on his chest, and you hear like the blue fairy or whoever going like, "Oh, you must awaken. Geppetto needs you. You must come find me at like the Kraut Inn, the Kraut Hotel, and I can give you more information." But and then you're in like you're in a train, like in a car, on a you're in one of the cars of a train, and you work your way through. And this is like the tutorial section of like very basically how you move, how you look, how you pick up items. And then at the very end, you get to choose a style. So of course I chose the most beefy style because that is always the correct answer. Also, the Fit Girl Repack torrent that I downloaded had all like the DLC and all the extra bullshit. So I already had like a costume that made me look kind of like a sweet ass, um, like Persian fighter almost, Persian slash Arab. And then I had like this sweet fucking halberd, which I was like, yeah, dope. Because the choices you get at the very beginning, it's three different kinds of swords. There's balance and like dexterity essentially, and then strength. And so I chose strength because I think it just gave me more strength stats, which is what I wanted. Anyway, and then I got the sweet halberd. So, yep. So then you head out and you're in like a train station, and then in the train station we get also before you leave the car you get Jiminy, like Jiminy Cricket, right? And he's in a little thing, and if you use him as an item, which you can use unlimited amount of times, he like lightens the room, which thus far has been completely unnecessary. Like I even forget because and the Jiminy will like remind me. He's like, don't forget you can use me to lighten your path, and I'm like, oh right, fucking lighten my path. So I'll like use him just to like have him on, but I don't know if it does anything besides like because it actually light. It's like a lamp, right, on the back of your leg. Um, but the game's very vibrant and bright and beautiful. There hasn't been any like I can't see what's going on. I feel like I need to have a torch or something. So I don't know if it's just like a gimmicky thing or it'll actually be useful later, but we'll see. So then there's puppets all about, and they attack you if they see you, so you must murder them. And they drop like ergo. I think it's Ergo, which is the Souls variant in this game. So you want to gather all that deliciousness up so you can level up and then buy stuff later if you really need it. And then we find a note, and so we're trying to get out of here. The door's locked, so we need a key. And then so Pinocchio here, his left arm is like robotic, but he seems to be like a real boy outside of that. And then he holds the other weapon in his like right arm. He doesn't like dual wield as far as I can tell at this point. And I work my way through, and you're killing all these like puppets, right? Like he used to be a puppet. And typical kind of like tutorial section. They're all pretty slow. You learn to like, you can sneak up on them if they're standing there and do like a stabby stab to the death. You can block, you can roll, very typical stuff, which I appreciate. It's like, it's just like, okay, I smoothed in, I like sat into this game like very, very easily. The game does have like a parry situation that you can do even without a shield. So if you block at the right time, you'll like parry. And then if the bad guy turns, we learn. We don't learn it here. We learn it like when we get out to like the main hub, when we get out into like the actual game out of the tutorial. But if the bad guy turns red right before attacking, and you do like, they call it a perfect block, like your parry, then you'll like attack back and do a lot of damage apparently. And according to the dudes on Reddit, that's like a super important thing to learn how to do. That's going to be very helpful in the future. So I'm always bad at the parry. I don't know if I'm just like slow. So most of these games I will just like ignore blocking or parrying or anything and just like dodge a lot. So I might need to like get that together. I kind of had to try to figure it out a little bit with Mortal Shell, and it was helpful there for sure. So I might need to like get my act together. I think my biggest problem is always wait too long. Like I assume you gotta wait till like too late. I need to like jump the gun a little bit on myself. Anyway, completely unimportant in this first section. You eventually find a note, and it talks about how they locked the train station down and told everyone to go hide because this like big puppet was like rampaging. And so eventually you work your way down to that guy, and you have sort of like a mini boss. He really wasn't that hard. I beat him on my first try. You have like 3 Eustace flasks or whatever they call them in this game, and so really not that difficult. He gives you the key when he dies, and then you head out and you open up and you're in this big square and it's rainy. And then you get to like your first like bonfire. They call him like Stargazer, I think, right? Because starlight, starbright, first star you see tonight, wish I might, something, which is from like the Disney movie. I don't know I can't remember if it's from the book. It's been a long time since I read the book. I think it was a book, like that old school Pinocchio story. But in the old Disney movie that's based on it as well, Geppetto, he's a puppet. He's like a carpenter or something. He makes a puppet and he wishes for his son, and then the blue fairy comes and turns Pinocchio into a boy, and if he can like make it through the night, she'll turn him into like a real boy. But if whenever he lies, his nose grows, right? That's like, there's all the symbology. I don't know if it's gonna have anything else to do with the gameplay thus far, no. But there it is. So Stargazer makes sense, right? It's like all allusions to Pinocchio stuff. So then, like I said, I do some exploring, just find some items, kill some dudes, and find there's like one pathway out of here. So thus far the game's pretty linear. Granted, I'm still kind of technically in like the tutorial phase, but we move our way through, and this is where we learn that about the perfect block, because there's like a big dude that shows up. There's some dog enemies. Other than that, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Just kind of work our way through, level up my strength, of course, and vitality a little bit. And then we get to a guy selling stuff. Like we can buy the other weapons from the barrier opening if we really want, and sell stuff to him. And he also sells this lightning stuff, which is important because puppets are like weak against the lightning element. And then there's the first boss, the first real boss, the Parade Master. And so we go up and we give it our all against him. I'm able to get him to his second phase and get him about to like 1/4 his health a couple of times before I lose, and I'm like, all right, I either need to level up or I need to use some lightning magic to weaken him up or to kind of push on through, or I just need to be more patient or whatever. But the boss is pretty good. He's not that difficult. I haven't beat him yet, obviously, but I played enough of these games where it's like, all right, this is like a patience and kind of like just like a little bit more refinement of my ability to play this game. Like he's not a difficult boss. There's nothing about him in particular that's like, oh, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do here? It's literally the first time I played him, I was like, all right, I see what I got to do here. I just got to like execute on, I got like literally just have to get good and I'll beat this guy. All right, so we finally beat this guy's ass, but stupid parade master. What an asshole. I pretty much just fucking lightning my weapon, which and then just like went super aggressive, like more Neo Bloodborne style than the Dark Souls, and just kind of powered through killing him. I think it helped that I struggled a couple. It took me like 2 or 3 tries to kill this guy, but nothing too crazy. So then once we beat him, we head into Hotel Kraut and we meet Sophia. Sophia's the Blue Fairy representative, and she is now the person who levels us up, much like Millennia, or however you say it, from Elden Ring. Only you have to go back to the hotel to level yourself up thus far. So these like little stargazing spots that I was able to level up before, not anymore. You can teleport instantly to any of these stargazing places you've been and the hotel, but you can't level up there anymore, which is an odd choice because I was able to do that, and now it's like an extra step, which is like makes it a little more inconvenient. I don't know if there's like a way to resolve that issue later on, like a Lord Vessel kind of situation where you get an item that lets you do that, but thus far, it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this. We also get a new arm attachment, like a puppet string, which lets me like grab dudes and bring them over to me. I haven't really used the puppet arm at all. I like my glaive; it works great. It broke at one point while I was moving my way down Elysium Street to find Geppetto, which is my mission from Sophia. And I just used the sword I had equipped, also the big heavy sword, and it was like good enough. It wasn't as good as my glaive, but I might need to in the future invest in some of these like repair things that fix durability and stuff, so that I can more easily execute on my favorite weapon in this game thus far. Okay, so what else? Who else we meet in the hotel? We meet Percival or something. He is. So interesting thing. We get to the hotel, and it's like the hotel will not let puppets inside. Even though when I got in the hotel, everyone was like, "Oh, you're Geppetto's puppets. We love you. You're the best." And I was like, "Cool, thanks, old woman." And a girl, like mechanic lady, engineer lady, who upgrades my weapons if I, get the correct moonstone and starstone or something. Anyway, super nice lady. She's the one who gives me the puppet string. Yeah, and then there is a puppet who works at the bar / front desk of the hotel. And interesting note about the hotel, I saw this in like a loading screen, that it used to be an insane asylum. And then the old woman, who I also meet here, Anna something, she was a patron of the, I like how she as a patron, an old rich woman who was a patron of the insane asylum. So if you're a patron of an insane asylum, you're actually a fucking patient. So she was a patient. No one patrons insane asylums. Like, the fucking, I was like, this is like bizarre Korean like mistranslation. Like patron. The fuck. Anyway, she's the one who converted the insane asylum into a hotel for reasons unbeknownst at this juncture, to me at least. But she's nice. She knows Geppetto, and she thinks I'm the bee's knees, and then because I'm Geppetto's creation. So now we gotta go. Sophia tells us to go rescue Geppetto on Elysium Boulevard. The second we walk out, there's like a trolley car that breaks, and then she also fixes Jiminy Cricket, who was like a mechanical cricket in like a thing, which was like a toy that people loved before the puppets went insane. They call it the frenzy. So Jiminy now gives me like, he like tells me shit occasionally about what's going on, and so I walk out and he's like, those damn black rabbit rascals And I was like, ooh, am I going to fight one of them? And so I was being like very cautious in this opening area, and there was nothing. So I was like, all right, whatever. And then he just fought more of the same enemy for a minute. There's like a big dude at some point that I fought with my big sword, and then we started getting like treasure chests, which have like slightly better items, besides them just being scattered about with blue light. Whatever. I'm trying to think. Oh, and so I was able to work my way. We go up on the roofs, and then I got to like the second Stargazer save point, essentially, leveled up, and there's someone in this other room, so we're going to find out who that person is. So continuing our journey through, I don't even know where we're at, just like Krautland. Krautland. We push forward. Not too much information for a bit. We go over some rooftops, fight some guys. We run into some dudes who start throwing like lightning bottles at us, which is an item we have as well that is very effective at fighting, doing increased damage to puppets. And if you get fully stacked with this thing, it starts doing kind of like a poison effect. Excuse me. Then we start reading some stuff about City Hall. In fact, we run into a lady who is in like the quarantine sector of the city for it's petrification plague quarantine or whatever. And she's like crying in a window. So we go say, "What up, girl?" And she's like, they took my baby away. They took them to City Hall. If you could just bring my baby back, I would be so happy. And it's like, yeah, girl, for shizzle. So I don't know where City Hall is. I thought maybe I'd passed it already, so I kind of walked around a little bit, and I was like, I'm just going to keep pushing forward. I feel like City Hall would be like a big thing that I would have recognized, which it is. So we continue our search through the Elysium Street to find Geppetto, and we... who do we run into first? Oh, yeah, that's right. So then we run into Donkey Face. Yep. It is a human. This is our first human enemy. And he is wearing like a donkey mask. And he's trying to bust open this carriage where Geppetto's in. So I fight him and die immediately. Well, not immediately. I think I get him to about half health. And I'm like, all right, this guy really doesn't seem that hard. So, and I'm also starting to gather in this game as I'm playing that this stagger mechanism that... so every once in a while, if you hit a guy enough times or hit him just right, I don't know exactly what triggers it, to be completely honest, but if you hit him just right, their health bar will, like the border will not increase, almost be like golden, like it'll kind of glow white. And when that happens, if you hit him with like your charge attack, which is on at least the controller I'm using, the R2, you hold the R2 down till it goes, then it puts them in a stun state where then you can hit them with like a sneak attack, like they call it a fatal attack in this game, which is the same kind of thing you would use when someone's facing away from you. I also noticed while fighting Donkey Face here that occasionally I would like dodge out of one of his attacks, and for like an instant, the little claw marks that indicate you can do a fatal attack would like show up, and then I would try to do it, but I was never able to get that to go. But I was able, on my second round, I beat this guy my second try. So on my second round, I was able to stun him, and then it did like 1/3 of his health. When I like stunned him, well, I got the stun up, and then I stunned him, and then I did a fatal attack, and then I just had to like pound face on this guy. And so I was able to kind of just brute force my way through. And I feel like what I'm learning about this game at this point is it is much more in the akin of like Bloodborne, where if you take damage, you have like a temporary bar, and the bad guys have it too. And so you got to keep hitting them, or they got to keep hitting you. So if you back off, you'll like slowly regenerate that like little bit of health back. And so kind of the style I'm taking with this is I'm doing the big weapons, the Unga Bunga, as much as I can with this, with my big halberd, and I'm just doing like hard attacks, and I'm hitting them like once or twice and then dodging back, and I'm just putting all my points into like strength and life essentially, so I can just like pound face. And it's been working out pretty good. So anyway, so we kill this guy, and then you're like, Pinocchio's like standing there looking at his hands all covered in blood, and he kind of looks like, the fuck? And then Geppetto comes out, and Geppetto's like a kindly old man. He's like, oh, my son, and he gives you like, not quite a hug, like kind of like a man hug where he puts his hands on your shoulders. Like, we're going to hug, but then we don't because we're men. and he's like, good. Here's the key to City Hall. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad I didn't waste my time searching around for this shit. For that lady. And he's like, go get into City Hall. And once you're in City Hall, come back to the hotel and talk to me about some shit. And then he kind of like, good day. And I'm like, all right. So then I head back to the hotel because there's like a Stargazer point right after this, just to kind of see. I was like, oh, maybe I can go chit chat with him. And nope, he's not there. But then I chit chat with the old lady, and she tells me more stuff about lying and that there's a secret under the hotel and stuff like that. And anyway, so we head on our way, and we work through like a kind of very short little section with a lot of these like the new enemy. Is this sword enemy, and so the enemy has like a big two-handed sword, and it's like a police-looking guy, and they block, and you can break their block by doing charge attacks, which, I mean, that's how I fight most enemies, is I'll like lure them in and then do a charge attack and then hit them once or twice more if I really need to. And so so that's cool. And the game like told me at some point, if you do like the block, if you parry correctly, that can also break. But I found that just like charge attack usually does a pretty good job. Like, I have yet to feel like I really need the parry thing. I think I got it to work once, just because, you know, every now and then I'm like, oh, let me try this parry thing again. I'll block sometimes, so I'm not opposed to the block per se. But it's like the timing thing is like, I feel like it's easier just to like move out of the way and be more like strategic. So then we get to City Hall and we read some stuff about how they created this like mascot puppet, but then it started being like, you know, kind of handsy with people, if you will. And they're like, oh, we can't use this anymore. And so then they kind of like deregulated it to just like sitting around, and then it would play with like the urchins when they came into City Hall. And so, but that drew a lot of the urchins, right? Which you don't want in this like, I don't know, Victorian era steampunk setting. And so they were like, oh, we're going to just put it away for the most part. And while I'm reading this, I'm like on a roof and I'm looking across like the courtyard in front of City Hall, and I see this kind of big looking dude. And I'm like, oh, maybe that's the mascot. And so I go kill that guy, and behind that guy is, and I don't think he was the mascot. I think the boss was the mascot, which we'll get to shortly. So I kill that guy, and then, I find the baby. Hey, it's the baby the lady wanted. So I take the baby back to the plague, and I give it to her, and here's an opportunity for me to lie. Excellent. And I'm starting to feel like lying is the correct answer because it builds your humanity, and the whole point of like the Pinocchio story is for him to be a real boy, essentially. And that what separates him from other puppets is that he can break like the 4 conventions of puppetry, which are like, don't kill humans and don't lie. There's 2 others. I don't remember what the fuck they are. It's like always listen to master or something. Anyway, so then I wander back, take the baby to her, and she's like, oh, isn't my baby beautiful? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And she's like, oh, you have done me such a kind service. Here, let me give you this record. And literally gives me like a soundtrack. And I'm like, cool. But then a pop-up shows up, and it's like, hey, if you go back to the hotel and listen to this record, you'll get more humanity. And I'm like, oh, the lying must give me more humanity, which I don't see. I went to the stats, and I'm like, what are my humanities at? And it's like, I don't see anywhere. And so I'm like, oh, maybe it's like it's like one of these things. It's like these erotic visual novels. It's like there's stuff going on in the background that like I'm not really privy to per se. Anyway, with that being said, we go and head into City Hall, kill some dudes, wander around. We unlock like an elevator that takes us back to like one of the save spots with like the guy who sells this stuff. And then we get introduced to specters. What's a specter? So a specter, if you've played any of these kind of like Soulsborne type games, you know that you can summon other people to help you, or like, and sometimes you can even summon like NPCs. And so a specter's just an NPC, and I'm like, oh hell yeah! And it seems pretty straightforward, as in you get these items that I never knew what they did, called like Starfinders, and I read the description when I first got it, and it said something about like getting aid from elsewhere or something, and I was, in my head I was like, oh, this is probably a thing, but then this is like the 3rd boss of the game, and this has like finally been like, oh yeah, you just go to this pool, you use a Starfinder, and you'll summon a Spectre. So I do that and head into the boss. And because of the Spectre, which is easy mode, for anyone who has problems with these types of games, these summoning spirits are the easy mode, which I am a huge fan of. So because what happens is I get into this boss, and he starts chasing after me, and I'm just kind of like poking at him and running away. And the boss this is probably the mascot. It's like a huge police-looking guy that's like, all puppety and like rah, like monstrous. And he's like covered in like electrical charge or whatever they call in this game. And so a lot of his attacks, he'll explode with electricity to do damage, or he'll like create spots on the field with electricity that will like shoot up. It can all cause damage. But like I said, I mean, for me, the strategy with when you have help is really just like, I poke at him until he starts attacking me, and then I run away, and then you poke at him until he turns around, and then I come back and poke at him some more. And I literally went into this boss fight with like nothing. with like one healing thing, and because I was just like, we'll just see what this goes. It'll be if worst case scenario, I'll just die and come back and do it again. So, because it's like whatever. I just want to see what this boss is like and get like a vague idea. But with the, I had a lot of confidence. I think I only had one life. Maybe I had a whole bunch of like recharge life things. One of him or the donkey face, I like rolled in with like nothing, and I still, it was like fine. This game really is not that hard. As long as you understand like core concepts of like being patient and like observing patterns and stuff. Like it's all the bosses thus far, and maybe there'll be one that'll just blow my mind. They're not slow per se, but they're not like super fast. So you have time to like kind of dodge around, to block some attacks and kind of see what they're doing and kind of gather the pattern from their attacks. And that's enemies too. So even though some of the tougher enemies, you can, it's not always, they don't do attacks always in the same order. But when they start an attack, it's clearly defined. So like the Korean company that made this game, like these Korean games, like this Stellar Blade and some of these other ones, like this is like, they are like really crushing it out there. Hopefully they continue to make these like AA/AAA games. Because the Western studios are just fucking dropping the ball all over the place. Like this is excellent, right? And even some of the Japanese games are starting to get kind of like bizarre with some of their stuff. So it's like, it's nice to see that there's still like, this is going to perpetuate and give us entertainment going forward. So with my Spectre homie, I mean, that's how we do it. And at some point, I'm able to stagger him and then fatal it. I don't think I even fatal attack him because I'm supposed to fatal attack him from the front. But at this point, he was stacking the Spectre, and then both of us were like hitting him. And then we staggered him. And then I was like, I'm not going to run around to the front and then miss the opportunity and die. I'm just going to keep using like heavy attacks on his backside while the Spectre just like pounds him from the front. And then we were able to defeat him doing that. And once we defeat him, we get access to. What do we get access to? Oh, we can finally use these like quartz. So some of these bosses have been dropping these things called quartz, which I was like, are these like boss souls? So we head back to the hotel, and there we can, we talk to people and, talk about Geppetto being back, and everyone's happy. And then like the mechanic lady's like, oh, hey, you got to go get Vincentia or whatever, Vignini. He's like an industrialist. He's like a Iron Man kind of character, Tony Stark kind of character, where he's like also he's like an alchemist, but he's also like the top industrialist in the city. He's like super rich, and he went to go close down his factory because his factory is the one producing all these puppets, right? And you got to go save him. And then you go up to Geppetto, and he tells you the same thing. And then he explains like all the different areas. He gives you like a rundown of the different parts of town and how they're overran with puppets. And he's like, hey, you got to go rescue my friend and help him out and make sure the factory's shut down. And you're like, cool. And then he's like, oh, also, you have this, like, your heart, which we see this, like, clockwork heart whenever you start the game in, like, the opening scene. Not even scene, just, like, when you choose, like, New Game Plus or whatever. There's, like, a mechanical clock heart. And so now we get, like, a little movie where it shows that Pinocchio that's his heart, right? And then we can use the quartz. We can insert the quartz into certain, like, a grid, like a sphere grid, if you will, from Final Fantasy X. And as we unlock, we can like go down the path. And then it's very customizable. And so obviously my style is just like go in there, punch face, have a lot of strength and as much life and defense as possible, and then just heal through everything. So I'm like, oh, I can have more I can have more Eustace flasks. Hell yeah. So that's what I went with. And I just went with, but you don't just choose that as your upgrade. You choose the Eustace flask, and then you upgrade like things as part of like the phase 1 project. So it's very interesting, It's not like too much. It sounds like a lot, but it's like there's only a few options, and it's really just like what's your play style. Whatever your play style is, you can customize towards the play style you're going for, which is very nice. I appreciate that. So I chose like charge attacks take less like stamina, or they do more damage. One of those two, I can't remember. And then the other one I chose was like I take less damage from stuff, right? Like very simple. Like this is my play style. My play style is thug in there, punch face, and then heal. Take a step back and heal for a moment, then go back in and just start pounding face again. So, appreciated. So after we get all that information, then we head to the factory sector, and I work my way into the factory. There's, a new type of enemy that throws fire now, so you can get overheated. And that's thing, I don't know if it's even fire. And the overheated is similar to the shock, the lightning attack, is in it kind of, you get like a poison effect from it. It kind of drains you a little bit. and along with doing like an additional damage. And I think that, oh, and then there's like a clown girl, like a Harley Quinn style kind of like puppet. I don't know. She like rolled in and like threw something that missed me, and then I killed her, and I didn't see any more of that. So I'm sure we'll get more of that going forward. And then one of these, the bigger puppets, he was fighting me with like a big wagon wheel, so that was fun. And essentially, I was just playing a game of cat and mouse with him. I was just like running around a building, stab, 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 running around a building, stab, stab, stab. So that was fun. And then we cross the bridge and get into the factory. And Jiminy had some commentary on the factory. I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, we also got... Oh, there was like another side quest or something. There's a guy calling on a phone, so when I picked up the phone, he was like, riddle me this. And it was the very typical like riddle. If you've ever looked into riddles at all or been interested at it on any level, you know, the one that's like, what has 4 legs in the morning, two legs in the afternoon, 3 legs in the evening. It's like a man, right? And again, you have like an A or B choice, and one's monster, one's human. So it's like, even if I didn't know, it's like, it's probably human, you know? And then I get a Trinity key, and apparently these Trinity keys unlock treasure troves. I don't think I've ever seen a place to use one of these. Maybe I have, and just like, it didn't click. So I was like, oh, the door's locked, moving on. So maybe in the hotel. I know there's some locked doors there that I remember, but I figured they were just like story related. But yeah, now we're in the factory. And we're going to see how that goes. So, the factory, right? We're here in the factory to find Vignini. And I was a little confused because at some point later, someone references us being in the factory, like after they meet us in the factory, and that we like went into the factory. I don't know. So, but this whole section I'm just calling the factory because it's a fucking factory. So... we get introduced to some new concepts here. The first one is, I think it's called Decay. And it's like if it builds up all the way, I mean, everything poisons you. It's just a different kind of poison, y'all. There's burning. Static is really the only one that I don't think, it like depletes your Fable gauge or whatever, which lets you do super moves with your weapons. I think I got static once, and it didn't seem like that big of a deal. But like the burning... If you get burning, it essentially poisons you. If you get this decay or corruption or whatever it is, it poisons you. And there's just like goo around. And the way I first ran into it was there's 2 ways to go in the factory. You can go up the stairs or you can go around. You go around, you kill a couple guys. You find out that you got to lower like a pipe to get like the shortcut. And then there's a ladder going down, and there's some items down in this gooey water. And there's also a giant robot or a giant puppet. And so I go down there, grab the items, and get destroyed by this thing. And I'm like, I wonder if I can like fight it. And so I try a couple more times, and I'm like, no, it's like there's not enough room for me. Plus, I'm getting constantly taking poison damage. It's like Elden Ring, so it's building up my poison meter super fast. So I'm standing around in this stuff, and there's like a couple places you can stand, but that doesn't give you enough like leeway to like dodge around and fight this thing. So I was like, I clearly have to come back later. So maybe I'll just keep playing, and then maybe I can get like a super poison resistance and fight this guy. Find out later, it's completely unnecessary. Because as you work your way through this level, at some point, you can drain the swamp, if you will. And then you just go in there and kick the shit out of it. And it's not a real boss, per se. I mean, it has like a boss meter and all that, but it's one of these like side bosses that like you don't have to fight. And there's a couple of those in this area. I'm trying to remember the exact... I played a lot over the Memorial Day weekend and didn't record anything, so I apologize if I'm doing things out of order or missing things. No, okay, yeah, there's 2 like mini bosses in the factory here, 100% positive. And not just like, sometimes you just run into bigger monsters or bigger puppets or whatever, but in here there's like 2 legitimate bosses. So I'm tired of that guy, so I go back around, I climb up, and we enter into kind of like, I want to say like a sewage system, but you're like up in the factory and you continue to climb. A lot of things here have the burning damage, and we gotta let it, we get these like white puppets in here, and they are assholes because they don't get stunned when I wail on them. So I continue to just build up my strength and all that other good stuff so I can try to like one-shot as many people as possible. So we're working our way through here, and we come to this fun area where there's a ball of fire that just rolls down the hill, kind of like in Dark Souls 1 and other Dark Souls games. And then so we kind of have to like dodge around this thing and like time it, and then there's like the white puppets on the sides. So the strategy I figured, which is the best strategy, is to like gain the ire of the puppets and draw them out into the center where the fireballs will just take care of business for you. And we work our way up, and eventually we get to like a higher level of the factory. And here we meet some friends. So these friends, I think, are supposed to be reminiscent of, because it's the fox and the cat. And the fox and the cat, for those of you familiar with the Pinocchio story, are rascals. And they do rascal things like trick Pinocchio into being sold into essentially like strange slavery and like the carnival place where all the human children get turned into pigs or something. I don't remember exactly what happens. And the book's different than the Disney movie. So, but they're rascals. They're like no good people. And so they're stalkers, quote unquote, which is like these people who fight puppets and wear these masks. And most stalkers are dead. I don't know if they're even supposed to be stalkers because people keep referring to me, like Pinocchio, as the last stalker. But there's clearly these other people with masks who like are stalkers, according to like all the literature in the game that you find lying about. There's also a point here, and it kind of there's a point previously where this guy, I read about this thing where this guy sold like a cure to the petrification plague, and it was like a hokey snake oil salesman. We find another letter from him talking about how like he found something, but it actually made the petrification plague worse, which is going to come up after the factory. And he feels terrible about it, and it seems like he killed himself because he was so wrought with guilt about this thing that he kept selling because he was like addicted to helping people, quote unquote, but that he knew that it was not actually helping people, that it was turning them into monsters. All right, so around here is when so we meet our friends. One of them sells us like a rack like part 3 of this book series I've been collecting in the game, just like you pick up these documents, and he talks about how it's of a lot of value. And I think he just ripped me off, right? Because it's the cat and the fox, and that's how they roll. But I was like, whatever, I don't know. Maybe it'll be useful later. So, and it costs like 500 souls, so or ergo. So I was like, fuck it, whatever. That's nothing. That's like 3 guys. And we meet another new enemy who I hate, who's like this fire puppet thing with a big shovel, and I hate him because he just like damage soaks like crazy, and he runs really fast. So we only have to fight him. We have to fight like 2 of them in the game. So not the worst. 2 or 3. I can't remember. I think it's 3. I think I ended up fighting 3 of them. And then no more. So good. Also around here, we run into another, quote, like another stalker, another guy with a mask, who's like super mad, and he knows I'm a puppet. And so he flips out. He's a human. And so we fight him. And this boss was intense because he was very fast, and he'd do this like not a leap attack, but like a speed attack forward, like a charge attack. But thank goodness there's a table in like the middle of the fucking room. So I literally, and I did this with a few different guys, like this is like a common tactic for me, is I will just like walk around the table while they do their whatever attack, and then I will like walk back over and do like a charge attack. And since I'm using, and I usually use like big weapons or spells, that's usually my default, like I'll use like a big fucking sword or an axe or whatever, just something with a long reach, and then, or magic. That you can just kind of like ping, 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 pick these guys off. And so that's what I did. I just kind of wandered around, killing my first try. And all I did was open up a shortcut. Continuing forward, like I said, we've dropped the pipe, and then we find another thing that leads us back to like the Stargazer at the beginning of the factory. And then we also find what someone called the actual factory later on, the fox and the cat when I run into them later. Because right now they just like chit-chat about bullshit and, you know, whatever. So... we find another thing that drains the swamp. So then I head down there and I beat up the big robot. He just gives me more like bullshit to like upgrade my stuff. And since I'm using like the Korean halberd and I said Arab clothing, but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, no, this is like ancient Korean armor. It's a Korean company made this game, so obviously that's what it is. So it's really hard to upgrade my halberd. Like I have these stones to upgrade all these other weapons, and I have like 100 of them. Because I'm only using the halberd, right? Because that's how you play these games. You just find what you like, and you find what works, and you use it forever. And I happen to get it because I torrented the one with the DLC that it came in, so bravo to me. But I love this speared halberd, whatever, this big long spear so much. It's so excellent. But I've only been able to upgrade it twice because it needs like this item that I cannot find anywhere. It's like a dark crescent moon. Anyway. Neither here nor there. So finally we enter the actual factory, which is very flame-oriented and it's like a big pot in the middle with like goo. And we talk to the guy, and he's like, "Oh, you must rescue my puppet friend." And, "Oh, he's my butler. He's the best ever." And he's like just right over there. And then there's another one of these fire guys in here, and like the room is not set up for it. And there's dudes standing around throwing like shit at you. So you have to like climb up, kill all those motherfuckers. Oh, you meet Venini. That's what I was talking about. He's the one who's like, oh, please help, and then I'll help you by helping you. What does he do exactly? He helps you like change your grindstone, which you use to increase the durability of your weapon, so that it can add. Thus far, I just have shock and fire damage, but it's super useful because it's really like that shock and that extra damage boost you get from some of these items and the grinders. It is like night and day for 2 of the bosses I've fought, and so like literally just like reams in extra damage, and I'm already doing a bunch of damage because I'm just like a big fucking hit things as hard as like Unga Boonga, like fucking charge attack this guy for like 1,000 points of damage, and then this is like an extra like 200 or 300 on top of that, so. It really like just crushes through enemy HP. So we finally kill this stupid fucking fire guy, and he's one of those guys that once you kill him, they're gone for good. Thank goodness. And I clear out this room, including having to learn how to jump to get some items. And I was like, oh, can you jump in this game? You have to be able to. There's this area that the only way to get to it is to jump. And the funny thing is, like way later, like 3 levels later, like 3 areas later, the game's like, this is how you jump. And I was like, thank you, motherfucker. About time. Like, I didn't look it up, not online. I just like opened the menu and was like looking through like the controller setup and was like, okay, it's jump. It's like it's Dark Souls 1 and 2 jump, where you like you click the button that moves you around, like the L3 or whatever. I don't know what it's called in the Xbox controller. But anyway, so then we run into the boss of the factory, and I don't know if it's really a boss, to be completely honest, because there's like a little cheat section where you can like climb a ladder and you can just like heal or like think about your next move, which I used to like give myself like a second to go before I jump back down and kill them. And you can't summon a Spectre. And for me, like the big bosses, you can always summon a Spectre, and there's no Spectre for this. But anyway, so I was able to kill this thing in my first try, thank goodness. And oh wait, was that this area? Factory. That might have been later, actually. That was later. Oh, that's a different boss. Fuck. No, this is a real boss. I'm sorry. It's a big fucking fire boss. I remember now. So yes, this is a real boss. This is the boss of the factory. I summoned my Spectre homie, and I was able to knock this thing out on my first try. He just spews a lot of fire. I also equipped, you can equip like amulets or whatever, and so I equipped the one that gives you like fire resistance. And then I used my like shocker grindstone, the quick one, not the one that you get after you play this part of the game. And so I was able to just kind of cruise through this guy with my Spectre homie. Spectre homie died. Rest in peace, homie. And then we rescue Venini, and we got the puppet, and then, yeah. So then we head back, and Venini, in the time it took me to, like, talk to him, and then immediately jump into Stargazer and head back to the hotel, was able to rebuild his puppet friend. So, good for him. What a swell guy. So that's good. Good for him. And so the puppet sells us some trinkets that we can use to upgrade some of our stuff. And then Venini, it lets us do the grindstone thing, and he fixes up that area where we can now we can add more stuff to like the arms. I've been getting more like puppet arms, but really the string puppet is my go-to because it lets me I look into a room, there's like 3 guys standing around, so I like shoot the string and pull one of them out. And I've been upgrading it, so now I can do like a leap attack kind of thing into the room to hit him, which I don't like as much because the point is it's like a little bit of a long distance attack. But there's like a fire spewing one, there's like a shock punch one. There's, when I'm looking at like the ones that I can possibly make later on in the game if I find the right items or care enough to, one of them like shoots, it looks like a gun kind of thing, which I'd be curious about that as well. But I'm already like leveling up the string and like, fuck it, whatever. I don't like grinding in these things if I don't have to. I just like enjoying them for like what they are at the moment, and then coming back like 5 years later and playing them again. It's usually how I do my Dark Souls stuff. Anyway, so what's after the factory? So next up, we need to head off and figure out what's going on with the church. Because the church, the cathedral, is where all the people are supposedly hiding out, who are escaping the frenzy. But like no one's heard hair or hightail from them in a while. So the other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but at this point, after we rescued Venini, we're able to use the quartz. So we go, Geppetto's in his room chillaxing. I think we're already able to do this. So there's a quartz system, in case I didn't talk about this already. I'm not going to look. So you get these quartz items. They're very rare. Usually bosses drop them, or you can find them. You can buy some in the stores, like from the puppet downstairs. And then you invest in like kind of like a skill tree. And as you invest in things in certain areas in the skill tree, you like unlock other things. So it's a very complicated system, but it's also very straightforward. And I like it. I did mention this before. Yeah, so that continues to be very good. It gets me like I keep giving myself more life because I like to just charge in and fuck around until I'm about to die and then run away and heal. It's my playstyle with this, and it's working very well thus far. Okay. So next we're headed to the cathedral, but to get to the cathedral, we have to go through like the shanty town, which is very interesting because the shanty town is like so there's dead humans everywhere in this game. I forgot to mention, just like lying around. But in the shanty town specifically, I noticed they're all dark skinned, right? So it's like, oh, interesting. This is clearly like where the servants were living in this like Italian area or whatever. And so it's some interesting commentary that is like excellent storytelling that doesn't really like dwell on, but it's something I noticed because I was like, that's interesting. Because there was like a group of them piled up, and I was like walking by, and I was like, oh, they all darker skin. And I was like, yeah, they are. That's interesting. And then I like was like, oh, everyone is here. And then when I was like in other areas, I like looked again, like when I went back to like finish a quest, I was like, oh, they're all white skin. That's fascinating. So this area is fun. We get introduced to monsters. So this all ties into the grand narrative, right? So the guy who's like, oh, I made this cure, but it just made everything worse. He turned humans into like these strange, like, not puppets, but like these like monsters, these like zombie-like monsters. And that's what we end up fighting, like all the way through the cathedral and even into like the next area as well. So we're not really fighting puppets anymore, right? We're fighting these like monstrosities, and they keep getting like more crazy as time goes on. But in this area, they're just kind of shambling zombie-like creatures. And then there's some dogs as well. Oh, no, the dogs don't come up yet. There's dogs later, but the dogs they shoot. They're like almost like Hydraless doggies. They're still dogs, but they like shoot things at you, and they're like a little more spry than the robot doggies I fought before. So good job, crazy guy. You like helped make the problem 1,000 times worse. This area is pretty short though, and then we meet another stalker lady who claims not to be a stalker, even though she's wearing an animal mask, which is like a key trait. And she's right next to like a gondola, and she's like, oh, I wouldn't go up there. Like things got really hairy, it seems, and it seems like really sketchy that anyone would want to go up and like see what's going on at the cathedral. But hey, it's your life, homie. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm good. I'm going to go. And she's like, all right, you seem strong enough too. Cool. See ya. And I'm like, bye. And I never went back and visited again. And I probably should, because oftentimes that's where you find records, which records are important to increase your humanity for like the ending I think I'm trying to get, which I may or may not get, depending on if I decide to use a guide or not, which thus far I have avoided. All right, cool. So yeah, we take the gondola up, and now we're in the next zone, which is the cathedral area. The trolley cart is a nice little ride. Up, up, up. Because cathedral is at the top of like, kind of like a mountain. At first I was like, it's just going up a hill, but it goes up quite a ways. And you get a nice shot. It kind of reminds me, it's like the iconic shot of Anor Londo or whatever. Anor Londo, however you pronounce it, from Dark Souls. Where you just come up and you can just look out and see the city of Kraut. Anor Londo is obviously the castle, and you're just like, wow, that's pretty. A lot of these Souls-like games have these kind of thing. Code Vein had that one with a kind of like Anor Londo light. And then the other Dark Souls and Elden Ring games also had their kind of like moment where it's like you're rising to like this area, and it's this beautiful escape. And it's like, wow, I can go to all those places. This game's fucking awesome. So we get a nice view of Kraut, and then we get to the top. And the top is interesting because there's just more monsters. Where are the people? Here's the church, and there's the steeple. Open the door. Where'd all the people? It's this dumb thing with your hands my kid likes me to do. But that's how I felt about this. So we meander about a little bit, and we run into, I think his name's Georgie, something like that. He is dying of the petrification curse, and he is sort of an alchemist, but he has the wish cube, and the wish cube is kind of cool. It's like another thing you can like work on, and it's another system that you can integrate into like your kit. which I like. And this game's got a lot of like systems, but they're all like very simple and kind of straightforward. So initially you just get the healing one. I don't know if it has a specific name, but what it allows you to do is that once per long rest, if you will, you are allowed to use a wish cube inside this, like a wish, I don't even know, crystal inside the wish cube. And you can get unlimited crystals or whatever they are. You get them from this guy though. And at some point later on, and his whole thing is like, oh, I'll give you this, but you please help me. I'm looking for the gold coin tree. And if you can find the gold coin tree, it should be able to heal my petrification curse. And it kind of seems a little bit like this guy might be the guy who sold the fake cure that turned everyone into zombies. I'm not 100% on board with that idea. But just kind of like what he hints at, the way he's talking about stuff, is like, this might be that guy. So when this first occurred, I was like, because he makes some comment about how, oh, the trees sprout up whenever there's plagues in Kraut. And I was like, oh, motherfucker, do I have to go back and look through this entire game to find this dumbass tree? And I'm like, I'll do that later. I'm not that concerned about it. The healing thing is nice. It's like a regen spell that temporary works. It takes a minute to load up. So when I'm using it against bosses and stuff, you gotta like really time that thing. Like they gotta be like momentarily paused from one of their like attack patterns, and then you can slap it down, and it starts healing you slowly, which is nice, like an extra layer of healing. So I'm like, yeah, bro, sounds good. We'll do that. We work our way in and out of this kind of nice. So the game is interesting. It's got nice landscapes, and they're different. So we started off right in like a Victorian style town, and then we're in like the factory, which is like very industrial kind of looking. We spend time like dark streets and then and rooftops in this Victorian town. And then we end up kind of like in the outskirts, right? In this kind of wilderness area with these like small shanty towns. And then now it's kind of the same, right? There's like, it's nighttime now, but there's like a lake, like not even a poisonous, wait, was the lake poisonous? No, not a poisonous lake. And just like out in the woods. The unfortunate thing is, this is where the dogs start coming in, and they are assholes. But the thing that gave me the most PTSD was the fucking corrupted bear on a bridge. Like, fuck that guy. I killed him. Well, the first time I just ran away. I was like, fuck this bear. And then I like looked around for a little bit, and then I came back and I killed him. And I was like, cool. And then I continued forward and got to like a boss of sorts, like a mini boss, and I died. And I was like, that's sad. Because the entrance, like I could have very easily opened up the shortcut. I just was like, it's one of those things, right? Where it's like in these games, you're like, is this the shortcut route, or do I need to go here first? Like, so it's like I'm trying to figure out I'm always, my mind when I'm playing these kind of games is like, always find the shortcut. Always try to figure out where the game is trying to lead you, and then look everywhere else first to get all the secret items and all this stuff, and then the shortcut. But this one time, I was like, I'm gonna go over there, and that was the wrong decision, because there was like this mini boss, and I thought I could get him, and I did not. It took me like 3 or 4 tries. Because he does a lot of this like jumping attack business, and I was like, oh, bro. But I got him done eventually. But so when I ran back the second time to go fight this thing, it's not nothing in this game is like a super long run thus far. So it wasn't bad, but I was like, I'll just kill it. And the bear was there again. Because sometimes these like bigger enemies don't show up again, but the bear was there. So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just fight this bear. And he murked the shit out of him. He like knocked me down, kicked me, pushed me off a cliff, and then I landed, and I tried to get back up, and then a dog started attacking me, and then the bear came down, and they were double tapping me. Like, goddamn bear. So then the third time, I just ran past all that shit, opened up the shortcut, and then again, it took me that little boss. So you're in like a little kind of shanty town, and this like big monstrosity pops out and wants to eat your junk, and so he does. And it took me, I think on the 3rd try is when I got him. 3rd or 4th try. I get confused because of all the bear business that was involved with fucking bear. And the fun thing about that is right after you kill him, you move on to like another area, and then there's another boss. And that boss, I was kind of like, fuck you. So I just hit it once, because I didn't want to, like, I didn't have any of my health. Like, I just powered through this like previous mini boss. So the second mini boss, I was like, fuck it. So I just ran past him into like this castle looking thing, and I get there and there's just pit. It's just a pit going down, and I'm looking around to see if there's anywhere else to go, and the thing comes stomping in, and so I dodge out of the way, and it like doesn't attack, it takes it right up to the edge, and then I go over there and I just hit it once, and it falls over and dies, and I was like, fuck you, and then I fell over and died. Fucking pit. And I was like, oh, Lord, give me strength. This fucking pit. Fuck you, pit. So that I came back around. The first like mini boss was dead. It's good. You killed it. It's done. And I was like, all right. So I get to the second part, and the second mini boss is dead and gone. And the only unfortunate thing about it is I got nothing from killing it. So hopefully I didn't have like dark crescent moon thing, which is the one thing I want to power up my weapon, or anything else. Because I was like, fuck. Because it like toppled over the edge and fell down the pit, and then I was trying to go pick up whatever item it dropped. Normally with these bosses, mini bosses, you'll just automatically get their goods. But this guy, I don't know if it's because I hit it like one time to like knock it over. Anyway, I didn't want to keep falling down this fucking pit, so I was super careful my second time around, and I was able to get to the bottom without any problems, which was nice. And this leads us into it's like kind of, there's another fire enemy down here. We kind of go through some more tunnels and fight some more bullshit enemies, and I got caught up with some bullshit again, but there's like a safe spot or a stargazer. And eventually we come out, and we are able to like finally walk up and get inside this cathedral, and we just kind of like mosey our ass right in there. Once we're inside, we bump into Giorgio again. Right? This motherfucker just wandered in here. Fucking bears. Abomination, zombies. Dude, whatever. This fucking guy. So we can, that's nice though. There's a stargazer right here, and it's like, cool, we're finally in the cathedral. He'll charge up our business if we want for free, which is nice, because once you find that tree, he starts making demands. You better have that Skrilla scripts or whatever. And so the cathedral's broken into two parts. The first part is interesting. It's almost like I don't want to call it a clock tower, but it's a lot of like mechanisms and gears that you don't have to dodge around a lot of them. But there's another one of these like rolling ball traps, like in Sen's mansion or like earlier in the game with the fire one that ran. But this one's shock. I never got hit by it, or the fire one. And I wasn't able to really utilize it. No, you know what? I think it did kill somebody. But there's some more business with like the poison swamp thing. But instead of draining it, but it's different this time. Before it was like decay, and I think now it's corruption or something, which are two different things. And I never got fully corrupted or whatever. But if you work your way up, there's a few like the whole thing's like vertical, so it's a lot of going up and then down and then back up even higher. But if you get up high enough, there's like a fire sconce, and you kick it over into the pit, and it bursts in flames and burns up all the goo, so it doesn't hurt you anymore. And this first one, it's super nice because you can go back down there, and you find that like a puzzle box. But don't worry, you don't actually have to solve the puzzle. You just take the puzzle back to Vignini, and then he solves it. But now you get like the actual puzzle, and the puzzle is like, oh, my dear, it's time to hide, and I'll give you the hint so no one can find it. And there's like a picture of a puppet being strung up back in like the first level or second level, and it's like hit that thing with a rock, and then you'll find the clue, the next clue. And so then I mosey my way on back over there, knock that guy down. Find the next clue, and it's like, here's a key for this door. And I'm like, God damn, I gotta find this door? Elysium Boulevard. And eventually I just like walk backwards through the whole thing, find it, you get inside, and you get some goodies. Nothing too crazy. Nothing too crazy at all. There's also, I'm finding these Trinity gates now. I found two, and I was able to unlock both of them. And you unlock them because you find these phones, and you answer the phones, and it's the King of Riddles, and it gives you these riddles which have like, you have a multiple choice, like one or two, essentially. So both of them are pretty straightforward. And they're like well common, treaded riddles. Second one was like, what starts off tall and standing tall and bright in the morning and becomes dim and bent over in the evening, and it's like candle, right? And then he accuses you of cheating, which I guess like my prior knowledge of these things would be counted as cheating, but whatever. He's an asshole. So after you work your way through this first part, this is where you get to that boss I was talking about before. He uses like a shield thing. He's like a monstrosity, and that shield thing was really fucking me up. But I was able to get him on my first try, and that leads us to the elevator, which takes us up to the second part of the cathedral. In the second part of the cathedral, we meet Sister something or other. She's the last nun that's alive, and she tells you a little bit about how like everyone died and how she's the last one. She's Satapotamus, but that she still believes in the Archbishop's words, and that if we could just retrieve the Archbishop's words for her from his antechamber, that she would just be so happy and so at peace with life, and that everything would just be super awesome. And you're like, yeah, for sure, whatevs. And this section's pretty short. It's like in all reality, it's like 2 large rooms. But you just kind of like circle around into these rooms, and then there's like little side chambers. And there's also a new abomination boss with like big antlers and stuff. I think I fought him on a bridge, the bridge, which led over to the cathedral in the first place. I forgot there was like a big bridge area. The bridge is pretty simple. You like wander up, and there's like these monstrosities fighting puppets, and then once they've mostly killed themselves, you just kind of run across and kill whatever's left. So pretty straightforward. Yeah, and this has got another thing where it's all flooded with the corruption goo, and that when you can get to the very end after you've killed like the kind of mini boss, which again doesn't reappear. This is why I call it a mini boss. And then head up right before the Archbishop's antechamber. You can kick over another sconce of fire, and it like burns up the whole thing. Only this time there's no stairs leading to secret chambers below it. But you do find the antechamber with the notes or the scripture or whatever that the nun wanted. So I've taken it back to her. She's so grateful, and she gives you some bullshit. But later on, when you come back, after you've like stargazed or whatever, she has a record, which the records are important, again, because they increase your humanity, which I'm assuming affect the ending on some level, because it doesn't seem to do anything else. So the type of ending you get, I'm sure, is affected by collecting all these records, because the game seems very concerned that like it's like the lying thing, which is why I always choose to lie. That's another point. Does that happen here? Yeah, I think it does. Let's get, so then the boss's room is right next here, and the boss is a delicious like centipede monster with a wing inside, like a turtle shell kind of abomination, which is the Archbishop. So you have to kill this thing twice. You kill it, you kind of fight it, and the first bit is just kind of slow and meandering. So as long as you like keep some distance, do some charge attacks, bounce in and out, abuse your specter as a taunting creature, you kill it I killed it pretty quick. And then the second one's a little more complicated because it's got like a longer range, and it's a bit quicker because there's like 2 parts of it. There's like the stompy creature, and then there's the snaky guy. It's kind of like that boss from Dark Souls 3 that everyone loves, the 2 princes that are on top of each other. Only like that was far more intimidating and difficult than this, in my opinion. But so me and my Spectre homies were able to dispatch that pretty easily, and then, that's that for the cathedral. Dun dun. So where to next? Next we find, Geppetto had previously told us that below the cathedral is like Malin Street, or whatever, and it's like the poorest part of town. And I'm literally looking like out the window at the shanty towns I just spent the last like 3 hours meandering there, and I'm like, so it's poorer than that? And it is not. It's more like Victorian rainy night. So these people have like homes with like stone and brick, whatever. And they have several taverns you meander through. So they're clearly not that poor. Maybe the poorest part of Kraut, and then the rest is like area around Kraut, I guess. Something maybe, I don't know. But first there's like an elevator where you can go up. So you can head down or you can head up. So I head up, and when we head up, we find this Foxface guy, and he is like a nobleman, and he's like, again, he's not a stalker, even though he acts like a stalker sort of, and he calls you a stalker, and he's looking for a safe place to stay, and he asks if there's a safe place to stay. No, I mean, you can send him to the factory or you can send him to the hotel. And so for 2 reasons, I chose to send him to the factory. One, in my head, it's like the more I lie, the more human I become. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's kind of what the game I feel like is teaching me. And then two, I don't know if I can trust this guy, so I want to send him to the factory just in case. So then I send him there, and then I go to the factory where he's hanging out, and he gets super cross with me. You fucking lied to me, you fucking liar. I'm so angry, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go to the hotel. And then you go to the hotel, and he like chews you out again, but then now you can trade your boss souls for a weapon or a talisman. And since I have the perfect weapon that I am going to use the rest of the game, I just get the amulets. And some of the amulets are fucking awesome. Like one lets you continue to dodge even with no stamina. And that will be, I will be using that to the end of the game because it is so fucking useful. Because if you get yourself in like a dire situation, you can just start bouncing the fuck out of there. like do dodge, 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 dodge. No matter how much stamina you have, like so useful. I feel like that saved my ass numerous times. Some of the other ones they look pretty decent too, like doing more damage depending on how much Fable slots you got open and all this stuff. But it's good stuff. Anyway, so I guess all's right in the brain. All's forgiven. And at this point, I head back to the cathedral, and we continue our journey onward, which we go through some more tunnels, and then kind of pop back out, walk through some woods, and end up at this like Mowlin Down Street or whatever. And as soon as we get there, we see like this lobster tavern that's locked with a door that we can clearly get to later for a shortcut. And then our friends, the fox and the black cat, which again are not friends, are actually scammers, but this time they're much more scammy than they were before. They're like, they chit chat with us like, oh wow, holy shit, you made it out of the factory? God damn, I never thought that would happen. You're like, okay. And then they're very excited. They're like, hey, oh, so this is the area of the Black Rabbit clan or the Black Rabbit Brotherhood, which Jiminy like hinted at like way long ago, right? And he's like, oh, those fucking Black Rabbit assholes, I hate them. And then now it's like, oh, they're here, and they got little symbols everywhere, and you actually find one of their symbols, which lets you buy items from like a merchant later on in this level. So that's all good stuff. And, but the fox and the black cat, they essentially are like, hey, you lead the way, and we'll help out. And then there's, oh, they have so much treasure in their home, we can all share it. That'll be awesome. And so you're like, cool. But it and then as you're walking away, the black cat's like, what an asshole or whatever. He's like, oh, what a dumb gamook. We're going to trick this guy and it's going to be awesome. And so then they actually help you out for a little bit. There's like a few streets, it's not very long, where they like will help fight with you. And it's nice that you can't hurt them because I was concerned about that because my weapon like swings all around. And then we get to a few more kind of big areas where we have to like, there's another kind of mini boss character. He's a real asshole. I tried to fight him in like a tiny room and he just like destroyed me a couple times. So then the issue is there's all these like ranged attackers on the roofs all around him. And so I didn't want to like fight him in this central square, which has a giant fire pit in the middle, which you can't get hurt with, but also it's just like a barrier. So it's like the perfect arena for me to fight because I can just calmly whittle away at life. Even though they heal, right, just like you do, if you don't do enough damage, they get like a little bit back. I'll do this all day. No big deal. So I run past him and like clear out the entire like arena, like all the high up areas, all the low areas, get all the items. And then I like mosey on back in there, strut my fucking stuff right up into his face and just lead him around this fire pit for a couple of minutes and just fuck him up. And that's that. And so, fuck that guy. We continue moving our way, trying to find the black rabbits. We continue to see their symbols all over the place. We go in and out of a couple of like a hotel, which, like I said, has that. There's the first hotel, which is just kind of a little mini part, and then the second hotel, which actually gives us a shortcut, which is nice because it like leads right to the bosses, which took me, I think, 3 tries, and I had to use a bunch of those grinders. Not a bunch. I used the fire grinder that I just have like kind of like the permanent one on my grindstone, and then I used an electric grinder that I just had in like my items. But when I did it that way, the boss was super easy, and the boss is kind of intense. The boss is actually 4 bosses, but it's actually 1 boss. So it's Big Brother Rabbit, or biggest eldest brother Rabbit, or whatever, and then it's the crew of 3 douchebags who accompany him, and that's the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. You actually meet one of them. There's like a little boy, or I'm assuming it's a girl, just based on her voice and how she kind of like struts. So there's the girl who at some point when you're kind of working your way over here, she's like watching you fiddle around and she's making fun of you and stuff and be like, oh, I thought you... And they know you're Pinocchio, they know you're Geppetto's puppet, and they know a lot more about you than they probably should, which makes a little bit more sense when you get into their little like hideaway. Because I got a picture of you. Holy shit. And a bunch of other like random goodies. But it's at this point, right before you get to the boss, actually, the fox and the black cat are like standing on a walkway and they're like, you got him, champ, we're right behind you. Hooah. And then I died the first time and then I came back and they were gone, and Jiminy's like, those motherfuckers, they totally backed out on our deal, man, what a couple of assholes. And I'm like, yeah, you tell them, Jiminy, they're fucking assholes. It took me 3 tries, like I said. So the way the battle works is you have Cloud Strife with his fucking Buster Sword, moping around, using like wide attacks, and this is eldest brother Rabbit. And then after you get him to like 75% health, I'm assuming, somewhere around there, then the girl, little sister Rabbit, or whatever her fucking name is, who is like a ninja, she runs around a lot. She does kind of like a combo move that will knock you. It doesn't knock you in. It kind of knocks you in the air, and then she does like this back attack, and she'll throw like knives at you and run around. She goes down real fast, especially when I had my fire grindstone. I hit her like 6 times or something, and she was done. So what happens is the Cloud Strife. you got to see the sword. It's literally like a bigger Buster Sword, or like Berserk, or it's that giant sword, and he just kind of mopes. He's actually kind of quick, to be completely honest. This was the toughest battle thus far, I would say, for me. Even with my Spectre homie, because the first time I played through it, man, did it only take me twice? Maybe the second time I was just like, fuck it, I'm using grinders. Yeah, I think I think I played it 3 times. I'm almost sure. I ran in there, and then I tried it again. No, you know what? I think I only did it twice. I think the second time I was like, fuck this game. No, it was 3 times. Anyway, not important. But it's nice that you don't have to fight all 4 of them. That was like my greatest concern, because I was like, my build is really not about fighting more than 1 guy, to be completely honest. It's a lot of like hard strikes that use all my stamina, and then backing the fuck away and kind of chilling. So if I have like multiple guys I got to keep track of, it becomes like real scarce. So hilariously, the first 2 tries, I was being a little bit more defensive, and what I learned was that I just got to power down these fucking extra guys, like the little black rabbit girl, as fast as humanly possible. And that's why I decided, you know what, I'm going to use grindstones. And when I did that, like, I murdered this thing. I had like 4 health regenerators left. And at this point, I have 7. Right, so you start off with 4 or 5, and then I can't. Every time I get a chance to get more life stuff, I invest in that, because again, it plays well to my like. I'm just gonna like berserk in there, use all my stamina up, and then like go in for another strike and just build my guy to do as much damage as humanly possible with strong blows, which has worked. Right, I don't know how far I'm into this game, but there's like 1 area left according to Geppetto, so it's worked pretty good so far. That being said, yeah, because at first I was like, in my head, the first time I played this, I actually got pretty far, except that I focused all my energy on Big Brother, Eldest Brother Rabbit, or whatever, and I got him to 0 health, but then, because I was like, well, maybe if I just kill him, because my Spectre died, if I just kill him, the battle will be over. Au contraire. You have to kill everybody. So I was facing 3 people at once, so I'm sure there's some trophy or challenge if you play this game like legitimately on like a PlayStation 4 or Xbox, or PlayStation 5 is what we're at now, right? That you'll get a trophy for maybe having all the rabbits out there at the same time and still winning or getting him down to 0 health. I don't know. That would be quite the trophy. It's quite the impressive feat. You'd have to have like a really fast build though, because you got to be like dodging around a lot. But the second guy is a spear guy. He is the biggest pushover of the whole batch. Like, he's got like a longer range, but I have a longer range than even he does. And so, but every time I played, he went down pretty quick, except the time when I was just trying to kill the main guy as fast as possible. But the other 2 times, like, he went down super fast. Like, I just hit him, down he goes. Not too much trouble at all. And then the last guy, the thing that made that guy the most difficult, because I almost beat it on my second try, I came pretty close. Was just I kind of because I killed him as well. He's got like a rapier or an estoc or whatever, and he does kind of like the fencing thing, and he does a little more bouncy. He's like a midway point. He's like kind of like the sister, but not as like jumpy and fast. But he does like a lot of these kind of like charges, like fencing charges. And then he'll like do a couple pokes, and then that's like all he's got. But then he'll bounce away, which was kind of annoying. So like I said, when I embraced the build that I had made, which was just like as much damage as quickly as possible, just fucking go to town. I demolished these guys. Like I literally like the ninja came down, she was out like almost immediately, and then I got this guy down to half health, and then spear guy came down, and I did like two combos, and he was gone. And then I lit up, and this the third time the Spectre never dropped him below half health, I don't think, or maybe like around half health. He just kept like pounding away at him as well. The rapier guy destroyed him, and then the final guy I came pretty close. I put a lot in defense too, obviously for my build. So came pretty close to like maybe dying, but I was able to back up and heal enough to be able to get in there and just kind of like murk him for good. So that was actually a very pleasant battle at the end of the day because it's like I just need to embrace what I am. The lesson of Pinocchio, or the Lies of P, is that you are who you are, and you just got to love who you are, embrace yourself, and be true to your heart, your Onga Bonga heart. Anyways, that was fun. And then we kind of wrapped it up. We went inside. We stole it. We got all their treasures. I got the painting. We went back, talked to Geppetto about it. He hung it up on the wall. I like leveled up a little bit, and then the pathway. So their hideout leads directly back to the hotel through like a back entrance. And there's Giorgio You run into Giorgio like immediately. There's like and he complains that he found the gold coin tree, but that he can't access it. Because it burns him when he tries to take it, and then you go to the next room and there's a gold coin tree, so you can take 8 coins, and I guess they recharge every 10 minutes in game time, and then you come out, and now you can buy like a whole array of wishing stones. And I even leveled up wishing stones, so now I can have 2 wishing stones. So you can heal yourself, you can give yourself like more stamina, all this kind of boosting stuff for a short period of time, and then you can also give your Spectre like taunting or like resurrect your Spectre and all this cool stuff. And I was like, this is gonna be awesome. I gotta play around with this a little bit. So, and that's where we're at. And then we get the key to open to Rosa Street, which is the last street from the old lady who runs the hotel. And people are, we talk to everybody and just kind of like get caught up with all that stuff. And the old lady is she's like a firm hand. She talks about defending her people and defending her hotel and how she would die and all this stuff. And that she locked away the gold coin tree from the alchemists because fuck them. And she needed to protect her people. And it's good stuff. It's good stuff. The final area of Kraut here, Rosa Lindbaum Street, introduces some new stuff. So initially entering in, we get a return of our friends, the puppets. They're finally back. And the butler puppet makes a strong return with his candlestick as the whole first area is spent fighting and killing them. We also get another side quest, which it's been a minute. And at this point in the game, I'm a little concerned. I'm not super concerned. I don't give that much fuck about anything. But I would like to find all these records because the music's nice, and I like the little stories, and I would like to get a better ending without using a guide. I think with this one, I am not going to use a guide. If I do not get the ending, then I do not get it, and I will move on with my day. But we meet a lady who is clearly an alcoholic, as there are in a show of excellent storytelling again with this game, and again with a lot of these Souls-like games, which makes them like the good ones, not the kind of cheap ripoffs. Which are surprisingly not a lot of cheap ripoffs. I feel like these games are very difficult to like put together that in any way that works. So that you really don't see that many. I don't think I've seen any of just like janky remakes of it. Like first-person shooters, you'll find all sorts of janky like copycat games or like these survival games and stuff. And maybe they're just not as that popular, but like when I just like think of even the ones that are like not as popular, that like The Surge or the original Lords of the Fallen, like they're still well put together. There's still like ambient storytelling. It's just like the level that FromSoft has rolled into this whole like genre that they essentially created which it's just like action role playing games, like Saga Frontier or Kingdom Hearts, or not Saga Frontier, like Secret of Mana or Kingdom Hearts, but they just refined certain aspects of it and kind of made it like its own thing, right? And so even when you have stuff like Neo, which is, I would say, is not anywhere close to being like a Dark Souls game, it's got enough of the same similar elements that people like lump them together. That being said, you see like bottles, right? Like there's a bunch of empty bottles right by this window, and the woman's kind of like, the way she speaks is a little kind of, oh, hey, what's up, puppet? Like, and she requests like a fine liqueur because she's suffering from the petrification disease. I'm assuming that's what everyone's suffering from, or the plague. And so she wants you to go to this certain bar and find it, but we continue to head down this street. It's blocked off and on fire, so we got to work our way through a townhouse. In this townhouse, we meet some new enemies. First enemy we meet is the maid with like an iron duster, who is not any different really than the butler with his candlestick. You just kind of hit them a couple times and they go down. They charge at you a little bit, no big deal. But then we find I call them like a Harley Quinn kind of puppet, and yes, but it's less Harley Quinn and more like Harley from Chrono Cross, in that kind of Harlequin style. But now they explode. They didn't explode before, or at least I killed them before they exploded. But they like light themselves up, charge at you, and boom! And so we get a couple of those that burst through the wall, and then we run into a couple more of those later as well. And then just like now we're getting tons of new enemies. Then we drop down through this townhouse and we find these like baby puppets. First, creepy. Second of all, exceedingly tough. They remind me of the white puppets from the factory, in that they don't stun, and they do the crawling thing. And I've mentioned the crawling thing because it was only like a little bit, but it's heavily used here. So normally the puppets will walk around and get you, but occasionally there'll be like a puppet on the ground, and you have to like use like an attack that will attack downwards. And most attacks will kind of, at least with the spear, will do like a swinging motion, so I'll hit. But occasionally there'll be like a higher swing, and it will miss. So I use more like heavy attacks because those specifically like do like a chop down. But these things do not stagger, that as far as I could tell. And they come at you real hard, and they come at you in groups. So you really got to like hit and move. And they caused me like a lot of problems. I don't think I ever died to them, but close, very close. And there's like 6 of them in here. So once you get out of this, we meet 2 more enemies. I know, right? It's like coming at you hard and fast. So there's a puppet that is like a soldier with a rifle with a bayonet, and so they will shoot you. And they're shooting you. They're a lot more accurate than these previous ranged enemies, which kind of just lob rocks or bombs at you or whatever. In that, like with those, you could kind of, you'd see like the bomb coming at you, and you could kind of like sidestep or dodge out of the way. This is a bullet, so while you can kind of predict it a little bit, you gotta kind of anticipate where they're aiming at you when that click of the firing pin goes off. You gotta like be moving already, otherwise you get tagged up. And you fight one, and then immediately it's like, okay, that was fine. Now let's try 2 at a time. And then you often find several of them, or they're like up on a building shooting down at you while like puppets are trying to run at you and explode. It's a lot more hairy. I feel like up to this point, there's been like a few tricky parts and that fucking bear, but generally it's like, oh, if I stumbled in, you don't get the kind of like Dark Souls 2 level of like, oh shit, like I should have like eased myself into this room a little slower. But in this level, there's a lot more of like, aha, there's one guy, I'm gonna go hit him, and if there's another guy behind me, whatever. So you hit that guy, and then you turn around and there's like 4 dudes, or there's dudes shooting at you with guns, and you're like, goddamn game. Like, really like taking it up a notch here. And then the other one is, and if you get close to the shooty boys, they will start trying to bayonet charge you. And then there's also these like, we saw this like at the hotel, and before the first boss, there's like a sparring puppet thing that's just kind of like locked in place, and it will like, you can like practice your moves or whatever. So similarly, these guys are stuck in the place, but they lob things at you, and they lob pretty quick. These like explosive bombs. So the bombs are easy to dodge, but they explode. Like, and one time I was like behind a column, and it still got me, and I was like, damn, like got him. And again, we're fighting these things, so like you have this corridor. It's like the corridor of death. Like I almost died. Like I went through like all my healing stuff to get through this. There's like shooting guy, then another shooting guy right behind him, and then like 2 bomb throwers, like one hiding on the left and then one kind of out in the open. And then there's like a small little like, what do you call it when you trick enemies into coming down, like a choke point. There's a choke, like a little fucking choke point. And behind that choke point is 2 shooty guys that are separated and 2 bomb throwers. And I literally had to like dodge, like block a shot and then run as fast. Or the way I got through is I had to like block a shot and then fire off my puppet string, which I tried I tried like this landmine arm, and I just couldn't get anyone to like walk into the landmine. Because it's like by the time I'm that close, I might as well just fight the fucking thing. Maybe it'd be good against bosses. I don't know. It didn't seem to do that much damage. Anyway, so the string's still the king. So I had to use the puppet string to like get one of them over to me so I could fight with it. And then I was able to like dodge in there and get the rest of them. And my reward was a weapon I'll never use. That's usually the word for these like more peculiar areas. So just collecting things, fucking collecting things. I love these games so much. Like I will never use any of these like pointless treasure chests that I'm accruing. I'm really just trying to, I'm like every time I open a treasure chest, I'm like, please be quartz, and I'm like, fuck you, game. I did find one more quartz. It was quite a incident. Well-made level design, I have to add. It made me consider, like, maybe I need to go back and look around a little bit more to find some of these secrets. Because it's one of those things when you're playing these games, you really got to keep your mind open to the possibilities. Like, this is not Mario Brothers, like, where if you fall down the hole, you're dead. It's like, this is, if you fall down the hole, great reward sometimes. It's like, how far are you willing to track down this hole or do whatever? So then we meet the first boss, and it's like a mini boss of this level. And again, I use there's like 2 kinds of mini bosses. There's like the mini boss, which is just like a big guy that's a little more difficult, that once you kill, they're gone. And then there's like the named with like the boss hit points, but it's not like a level capper, and it's not like a it kind of just opens up more of the level, or gives you like a shortcut, or gives you a special item kind of bosses. And this one's a human. So at the beginning, when you first enter the area, Jiminy's like, oh, there's like a singer in red, Andriel or something, and she's so great. It'd be great if she was still around. We could hear her sing. She's like the greatest opera singer. And the whole area, the Rosa Lindbaum Street is like the entertainment sector. So there's always like music, and it's like the theater 24 hours. It's like Times Square or something equivalent, or trying to remember that street in London, but it's like that kind of situation. So we enter this like theater, and there's like a puppet spinning around in the middle with all these like arrows in it, and then there's a bunch of puppets hung up, and it's super creepy. And I'm like, this is definitely going to be like a boss fight of some kind. And at first I was like just wandering around. I was like, okay, boss, I'm ready for you, even though I wasn't ready. And then finally I go up to like the puppet in the middle, and I'm like walking around it, and then, you have to interact with it. So I interact with it, and then you hear this voice of this woman, and she's like, I hate you puppets. I know you're a puppet. You can't hide from me. I'll get my revenge. My sister. And so this is like the sister of that singer we were just talking about. I'm like, oh, that's excellent. Excellent storytelling. And she's all mad, so I'm assuming that lady's dead at this point. And it's the woman in white. That's what she's called. And she's got a mask. And so she jumps down, and she's like a very, like, when I was first fighting her, I beat her on my second try. So the first try, I'm like kind of poking at her, and she keeps doing this attack, and I'm dodging around, and I'm like, I might be able to get this, to be completely honest, even though I have like no health regeneration. But then at some point, I got like stun locked against a wall, and she just kept stabbing me, and I tried to dodge or block, but it would not, and then I died. So I was like, fuck that. So next time I go back, I'm like, I get her trapped around one of these circles, and then I just do charge attack, and I just whittled away at her, and charged up my like super attack, which is like this radical like spin move that just like destroys things and usually stuns them. So then I can stun them. The stack already does like a ton of damage, and then it like stuns them because it's like a heavy attack. So when the health bar I mentioned before brightens up the whiteness, you can like hit him with a heavy attack, or I think you're supposed to hit him with a charge attack. I always try to hit him with a charge attack, and that'll put him in like a state where you can do like a fatal attack, which is like a backstab. And when I do this, I like will hit him enough, and like I even like upgraded my ability for my heavy attacks to put people in like a staggered state through the quartz system, because this is part of like my whole how I beat everything. But I use this, and so commonly with these bosses are just kind of bigger enemies. Like I'll hit them with a few charge attacks, and then I'll charge up, and then at that point I'll like have charged up my super attack, and then I use my super attack, my Fable move or whatever, and that will like put him in a stun state, and then I'll fatal hit him, and that'll kill him or take him like all the way down. So after doing that, she was like almost dead. So then it was just a few more like pokey pokes, and then that was it. And then she's like, "Oh, sister, I am now like you," because she's now covered in red, right? It's like, oh, the rating is excellent in this game. I love it. And that takes us to our first Stargaze, or there was one at the beginning, but the Stargazer, and then we meet like a finely dressed human gentleman. I'm like, oh, how are you alive? Fuck, bro. And he's like, oh, my dear, she got trapped behind the fire street, and I know she's probably dead, but I would just like her possessions. If you could bring them to me, I'll help. I'm like, yeah, bro, for sure. And at that point, I go into the sewer, of course, and then there's a lot more of these like crawling monsters in there, and this is where I get to the point I was talking about before. There's like a path that just leads to like a falling part. And I walk over and look down. I'm like, I wonder if I could jump down there. Because it looks kind of like a little blurry. So I'm like, I don't know if that's just like death. But I'm like, you know what? There's a Stargazer like 5 seconds away. Fuck it. So to be cautious, I have a ring that makes it so I don't take as much fall damage. So I equip that and I just hop down. And yeah, there it is. And I work my way through here and I get a quartz. Yay! Worth it. You also fight a kind of big guy. Not a mini boss at all, but just like a bigger guy. And then I pop back out. And the shortcut takes me right to the theater. Then I go back through again, go the correct way, and you end up at like this area. And there's like it's the other side of like that firewall from the beginning of the level. And there's our friend's wife who's dead, and she's also dun 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 a puppet. What? Jiminy is shocked. So we take the wedding ring that we get back to the guy, and he's like, yes, I was in love with the puppet, and there's a whole chitter chatter, and we get an option to make a choice. So obviously I'm thinking like, okay, can puppets and humans be together? I want to be human. Yes, they can. Absolutely. You can be in love with the puppet, and it's fine, and she can love you. And I lied, because I hope I lied, because it was like, oh, the things weren't like, yes, you can be in love or not. It was like, I've never heard of a puppet and a man being in love. And then the other one was like, she wrote you a message saying she loved you. So I just said that. Because I'm a liar. Liar! And he was so happy that he gave me something. He just gave me a ring. I have like a whole line in my inventory of like key items, I want to call them, that I don't know what to do. And one of them's like just an apple I bought from some guy. Because I was like, this might be important for some reason. And it says 1 next to it. I'm like, are there more than 1 apples? There's so much about this game that I'm still like, I feel like I'm on the last level of this game. But maybe I'm not. Maybe this is going to like super open up. I'm going to get like another like 15 hours into this before this game like wraps up. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. I feel like at some point I've seen like a list of like the bosses in this. And I'm like definitely cleared almost all of them. So maybe it's like a new game plus thing. I don't know. I'm sure there's like a lot of missing because I'm just not autistic. Anyway, so so after finishing that guy's side quest and killing one of these soldier guys that has a flamethrower instead of a rifle, I look up a street and there's like more ominous fire stuff going on, and I almost get pegged with a giant rolling flaming boulder. So that's the third one in the game. Good job, game. I also unlocked a path back to the very beginning. So a shortcut to the first Stargazer for the level. So at this point, we find my favorite villain of this game thus far, and that is the Fat Clown. He has a name. I don't remember what it is. I just remember being Fat Clown. Fuck the Fat Clown. He's a big puppet. He's the one who pushes the fire wreckage at you. And when I wander back over there to take care of him, first of all, the route to get to him is ridiculous because it is so far away from a save point, which is not a huge problem necessarily, but the pathway is not just like some enemies you kill and some stuff you got to do. It is like flame guy, flame guy, flame guy, flame guy, and then like 2 or 3, might only be, no, I think it's 3. 3 of those other standstill puppets that throw fire bombs at you, and they throw them like quite often. And then the fat puppet he like doesn't take staggering very well because he's such a fat ass. And he has this like twirly attack that you gotta just dodge, and it's like, I would love to see somebody I would love to see the video of somebody fighting the fat clown puppet in this arena. So at first I tried, because I can't believe it. Like there's like 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 8 other guys who all have long range attacks that are like meandering about in this area. So I tried to like clear up space, but you get about halfway up like the ramp to get to the fat clown area, and he starts moseying down, and you know, you're trying to fight these flamethrower guys, and at the same time like these guys are throwing bombs at you, and then the puppet has like a long range attack, like his power attack when he turns red, which is easy to block, but you can't do like a counter attack on it necessarily because it's so long range. You got to be like right in his face, and he just keeps swinging. He doesn't like to tear him when you do your power block or whatever it's called. So it's like, the fuck this power block. I've never been a fan of this power block, and it's virtually done nothing for me. Like when I do like time it right and get it, guys just like I like block it, and then they hit me with like the next attack, and I'm like, fuck you, game. Like, this is supposed to stagger. I was sold a lie, Liza P. He lied to me. You asshole. I was told if I did this attack and I blocked it just in time, I would take no damage, which is true, and then it would like stagger them so I could get like a quick attack in. But that never has happened. But at least 20 times I've tried it. And it's like one of those things where it's like, unless I'm just trying to block the attack, I don't expect to do an attack back. So I try to draw him back. Like, I kill enough guys, get him to come down, and I draw him back, and I'm like circling around. I'm doing the circle thing, right? The greatest thing in the game. So I'm doing the circle thing around some plants, and he just keeps wandering back. And so then I have to chase him, and by the time I get to him to like hit him, he like hits me again. And so I eventually die doing this maneuver. And I was like, all right, so this isn't working. What's next? And so I die a couple more times just trying to even get to him in this like ridiculous ambush area that I have to like wander through. And finally I'm like, I'm just gonna run past him and see what happens, because maybe there'll be a door I can unlock. They'll make a little bit of a shortcut, because I'm coming all the way from the beginning of Rosa Isabella Street. Like there is like, it's not like super long. It's like I have to do the whole level because I've unlocked like one shortcut, but it's still quite a run, and I'm running, and so I'm like, this is like eating up a lot of time that I would rather not spend doing this. So this time I'm able to like sneak on past everybody. And when I say sneak on past, I mean like run, dodge some more because I have unlimited dodges, and then run some more, and then dodge the clown, and then get up these stairs that lead me to like the opera house. And there's a stargazer right there in front of the opera house. Unfortunately, it turns red as soon as I approach it because I am now engaged in a mini boss, and this mini boss has like a life. The clown has like his own life bar that is in the center and everything. So like a legitimate boss, and it gives me a quartz afterwards when I finally beat him. But once I get him up into the opera area, there's no enemies, so there's no fucking around with like ambushes and dudes lobbing things at me while I'm trying to fight this thing. And then there's like a garden essentially, like the what do you call it? The accoutrement in the front of excuse me, the opera house. And so then I find like a nice little circular area that's pretty big, where he can't like fuck around with me with his like long range attack, and I circle, charge attack, use my ultimate attack, and we just do that for a little bit, and then he explodes, and I was so excited, and I got my quartz, and I was like, yeah, fuck you, guy. And then I save, I head back to the manor to like level up some stuff, and then we enter the opera house, and the opera house is interesting. It introduces 2 new enemies, which I do not like. So I've had this issue before where there's this white puppet girl that like will not stagger, and you just have to hit, run, and it does like a leaping attack at you. Not a leaping, but like a kind of like a charge leap attack at you. So you got to block that. It's not super fun to play against, needless to say. So that is an abundance here, and it's actually being controlled by a puppet master. So the puppet master is like a spider woman, and when the puppet master is controlling these creatures, these other puppets, and they hit you, you get like discordance, which I don't know what that does because I never maxed it out because I didn't want to fucking find out what it did. And then also when you get close to them, they do like a singing attack, which does like an explosion that will like it will knock you back pretty far, and it does a lot of discordance. They're like meaty. They got like big spider legs. I think they only have like 4 or 5 of them. They don't have like the full 8. And they can take a bit of damage, but they go down pretty quick. And once you kill them, it seems like the other puppets like go down faster as well. Sometimes that happened, and sometimes it didn't. I kind of feel like in the first, you enter the opera house, and there's like it's like a huge room with like you can go left, you can go right. There's like a shortcut straight ahead. If you go left or right, there's puppet masters. So if you kill one of the puppet master, like one time I just like ran past the puppets up to the puppet master, killed her, turned around to fight the puppets, and they were hard still. And then, but later on, there was like a puppet master by herself in a hallway, and I killed her first, and the puppets like died in like one hit. And I was like, okay, there's definitely something about that. But maybe in the first room, because the 2 puppet masters are up, even if the first one dies, you got to kill them both to get like the effect of like weakening the rest of the puppets. I don't know, man. I'm not, not the kind of guy that's going to sit here and like languish myself trying to discover the secrets necessarily. Anyway, so we get through that room, and then we find my next favorite enemy, which is like this big clown-looking puppet, and not fat clown, like a kind of skinnier clown that's just as tall, who has like a wagon wheel, who like will hit you with the wagon wheel. And there's 2 of them. The first one kicked my ass the first time I fought against it, because it does this like it does like its attacks are like kind of, they're not ranged, but it'll do like a kind of like a mini leap at you. So you got to be like really, that's a common thing for a lot of these enemies. But I was like not timing, I was not like distancing myself from the mini leap well enough, and I wasn't like using corners well enough to like get into this thing. And then I made the mistake of power blocking it, which did nothing, and then it killed me at one point, because I was like, I can just power block this thing, and I was like, got it, power block, and then it was like hit me with its fist immediately afterwards, and I was like, fuck you, power block, I'm done. Like, our contract is severed. I'm not doing this shit anymore. But it's good to kill them because both of them guard pathways that lead to like stuff, and in these kind of games you always just want more stuff, whether you're going to use it or not, because stuff is life. I have so many weapons I haven't even like deigned an instant to like glance at. Like there was like a fire axe at one point. I was like, oh cool, an axe, I might use this. And then I looked at it, and it was like all based on like a stat I had no points in. I'm like, why would the only axe I found in this game not be like strength or motivity, if you will? And I was like, man, fuck this, I'm going back to my spear. I found another dark crescent moon, so that gives me 3. I need 1 more to level it up to level 3, and I am like over brimming with other weapons types level ups, like just the regular crescent moons, and then the hidden meaning or whatever it is. And I'm like, if I could find an enemy that dropped this, even if it was a low rate, I would just grind it out. I would literally just grind those out. I want to level the spear up so bad. It's like kind of irking me at times, because my motivity at this point is at like 33, 34, and I'm only getting like a little bit more attack power from leveling that up. So I started leveling it up. It's not called vigor in this game. It's called whatever life is. I don't remember. And then capacity, which is like your ability to carry things. So I'm leveling it, and it gives you more defense. So I've been leveling those up a little bit more, because I think I hit like a soft cap with motivity, to be honest. Which is fine. I'm doing a lot of damage. Like I'm still like kind of crushing it with all these things. Like I still do like 600-700 points of damage, which is pretty good. But if I get that, I think now I need to get that spear leveled up, because that'll give me like significant increases. Like I think the level 3 is like over 20 attack on this thing, which is 10 times what leveling motivity is going to give me. So that's the next goal. So at this point, we kill a couple of these things. We kill some more spider guys. We kind of work our way around. Oh, one thing, we find the singer. the Adelaide, and she's like crying in like kind of like a secret room. Like I kind of found her because I was just walking around pressing on doors, like just walking up to doors, seeing if I open them, and it was like, "Would you like to open the door slightly?" And I was like, "That's weird, but yes." So I did, and the door just opened all the way, and then she's in there singing, and she looks really distraught, and she's like, "Oh, you're here to hear me sing. I'm so sad. I'm sorry." And I think she's talking about the white girl, because if I remember the white girl correctly, she was talking about her sister Adelaide, and how the puppets had like ruined her, but she's here alive. So like, I guess you made a mistake. You should have come rescue your sister from the opera house, you dumb bitch, instead of fighting me and dying like an asshole. But she's crying it up, and then the apple that I had one of. There's got to be more. There's no way they just had like Apple 1 and nothing else in that like category of key items has any numbers on it. But she's like, "Oh, I'm so parched. May I have that apple?" And I was like, "Yeah, girl, fuck it. Here, have your apple." And then she's like, "Thank you so much." And she like eats the apple, and then she's like, "Oh, I loved you so much. I feel sad." And then that's all she says. So, and I even left and came back to see if she like dropped a record or died or something. And nope. So now I'm like, that's too bad. So there's probably more apples I gotta come feed. I gotta stuff her like a fucking goose, so I can get my record. So I can get my humanity up. Anyway, so I work my way through the rest of this area, and then there's like a swinging fire chandelier and like a little tiny like wooden path that goes through it, kind of like the Sen Fortress, but there's no like other things going on, like people lobbing at you or trying to shoot lightning magic at you, all that fuckery. Fuck you, Fortress of Sen, in Dark Souls 1. But so I was able to get by it real easily, and then I noticed the Spectre Bowl, and I was like, "Oh, this is the boss. This must be like King of Puppets or whatever." And I was like, "No, we're not gonna do that yet. In fact, I'm gonna do my thing where I'm gonna look down this hole that this thing would have knocked me into, and I'm gonna go search that out," which was good because there's a lot of good stuff there. There was like more asshole puppets, and I unlocked like it took me to like all the other like shortcuts. And once I unlocked all the shortcuts, I kind of ended back up. One of the shortcuts literally just goes right outside to the Stargazer in front of the Opera House, because there's no other Stargazer in the Opera House. And I was like, okay, cool. I have like 12,000 ergo, so I can go level up some stuff. But I also found some other good stuff. I found a cryptic thing, right? That little puzzle box Vanini like solves, and then you get like a picture, and you have to go figure out how to get that. And then I got a case, like a Vanini case, which is going to give his puppet more stuff to sell to me, more junk that I don't need and I'm not going to use. But fuck it. The whole point of this game is to collect as much shit as possible. So we play New Game Plus, you can just like cruise through it, which I don't know if I'll do. The New Game Plus stuff is like really hard for me to like. It's like, man, I invested a lot of time and energy into this. I don't necessarily want to like cruise through this again. Some people love it. It's not really my cup of tea, to be honest, most of the time. So, okay, so then I head back and I give Puccelli his like box of trinkets, and I buy like all the shit that he's selling. Oh, not all of it, most of it. And then I get Vanini the cryptic thing. He solves it. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go solve this thing. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, it's at Central Station. I think Central Station is the place where I started, but it looks like there's like, I thought there were tombstones. So I'm like, oh, and like the hint is like, oh, it overlooks like Olive Kraut or something. And I was like, okay, that must be that like area by that like gondola that I was at. So I head over there and I fuck around there for a little bit, and I'm like, no, this isn't it. So then I take the gondola down, and I'm like, oh, hey, I remember there was like this lady here. And I'm like, what's up, lady? And she's like, hello, hope you're staying safe. And I was like, yep, for sure. And then I start walking, and she's like, wait a second, you're a goddamn puppet. And then like the boss thing comes up on the bottom, and I was like, the fuck? So I have to kill her because she's being an asshole. And I'm like, oh well. And I get her mask and some other bullshit. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. And then I search around some more, and I don't really find anything, and I get murked because I walk into like that trap room from like way beyond before, where it's like you walk in and it shuts, and then like I got bombarded and attacked, and I was like, oh, this will be easy. I'll just fucking kill these dudes. They only take like 1 or 2 hits, and they jump my ass real hard. So then I had to come back and do it again. I'm walking around here now trying to figure out where this puzzle is, and I look at it again, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I recognize it now. It's that little thing where you see the hotel at the very first level. So then I teleport back there, head over there, and one of the things that the singer lady said that I just remembered is like the Riddler, like the Riddle King or whatever, tricked her into staying at the Opera House, saying it was safe. So he's a fucking liar too. Interesting. I wonder if he's a puppet as well. Anyway, so then I had a real hard time. So I found the spot, and I look at the little picture, and I'm like exactly where it needs to be. And I'm like, It's in the ground. Okay, so what do I got to do? And I start hammering it with my weapon and jumping around, and I'm really trying to figure out what to do here. And this is like the first time I was like, I need to look this shit up. That's not the first time, because I looked up something for the first boss just to kind of get like an idea of like, I'm doing combat wrong. Let me look this up. And it was like, I need to use these grindstones. Anyway, so the second time, only the second time, which I'm proud of myself, that I had to look something up. And it was the fucking gesture where you point at the ground. So I just got to stand in the pile of dirt that was very obviously like, I was trying to hit it, and I was like, that's not it. And I was hitting like all around, like, how exact does this have to be? And then it was like, oh, just point at the dirt. And I pointed at the dirt, and I got some useless garbage, which was also the lady's coat that I killed like 5 minutes ago. And I was like, wow, that is wild. Because I don't know if I'd even like gone back over there to like kill her to get her mask, because you can kill like every NPC in most of these games and still they're goodies, right? But I was like, I'm not really into that ever, so I never do it. But I would have never considered like, oh wow, so I got her whole outfit by accident. Good for me, I guess. And the last thing that happened was at one point when I went back, I think it was when I first got to the Opera House and I head back, Sophia, the lady who levels me up, is like, oh, your painting looks crazy. You should go look at it. And I was like, ooh, I can interact with it now. And I head upstairs, and it's literally got like Pinocchio's nose, like the wooden branch sticking out of his nose coming out. And I'm like, oh, it's because I'm a liar. I love this. This is great. And then I talked to Geppetto, and he's like, yeah, the guy I hired to make this painting in the first place was super eccentric, but like, I don't know what the fuck's going on with this thing. And I was like, delightful. And there's a cat that I tried to pet that was angry. I'm sure that's important too. There's all sorts of stuff that like maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I'm like, ooh, I love this. This is fantastic. If only I just need to find all these records, get my humanity up. Hopefully I can discover the secrets here. So now it's time to fight the King of Puppets. I get kind of geared up a little bit before I head in there and summon my Spectre homie. And I'm ready to go. And I got some of those like quick turnaround grindstones for electricity, and I got my main grindstone, and I got my I took a wish stone to give the Spectre electrical damage as well. So I pop in there, we get a little cutscene, we see this kind of ridiculous play that occurs where there's like a puppet Geppetto, and he takes the heart out of like a puppet Pinocchio, like a like a different puppet Pinocchio, and then puts it in like a puppet sitting somewhere else, and then there's like clapping, and the puppet stands up and is like, ta-da! And then the King of Puppets drops down, and it's like this big hulking puppet with like a crown and like a cloak and all this stuff, and it's got a big smiley face, and it reaches down to shake Pinocchio's hand, and Pinocchio like hits his hand away, and then the head turns around, and it's like angry face. And then the battle commences. And so the first stage of this is pretty straightforward. It's a big lumbering Hulk, so you just kind of you got to like run in, hit, and then when it starts doing its like super attacks, you either got to power block it, which I refuse to do at this point, or you just got to dodge back out of the way. So that I take care of him pretty easily with the Spectre. Spectre takes a lot of damage though, and that kind of like really screwed me up for the fight, because then we enter stage 2. In stage 2, the King of Puppets like opens up, and there's like a smaller puppet controlling it from inside, and then the big King of Puppets explodes, and then King of Puppets Romeo, who's the actual King of Puppets, like slides out, and he's got a scythe kind of thing, like a hooked weapon. I don't know if it's exactly a scythe. And he is completely different. He's very agile and fast, and he comes at you with like combos and stuff, and does a lot of like kind of jumping attacks. And so not as fit to my playstyle as the Hulker is. So, but I was still able to get him down to about 1/4 of his life. My Spectre died about halfway through, and I was still able to kind of dodge and fight. But again, it's like my build is set up in a way that like if I got to be like moving around a lot and I don't have like time to breathe, which this enemy doesn't really give me, it makes it a lot harder. So again, it's one of those situations where it's like, all right, now I got to go. I'm back at the hotel, and I'm reevaluating my build, not my core build, but like, okay, so what are the accessories I need to bring into this battle to make sure that I can like take care of this guy? And so I switch out. I was using the increased damage to puppets, and it seemed like, I know he's the King of Puppets, but in my head, for some reason, I felt like I could do more damage with a different thing. So then I equipped this I got an amulet in the Opera House that gives me more tech, which is it's like the dexterity, right, for most games. And so it did give me an increase in damage. And then I realized, because I just checked, because I was like, I picked up a couple of these like crescent moon, dark moonstones, so maybe I have enough. So I went and I was like, okay, good. So I upgraded my spear to level 3, which is excellent, because again, that's like 28 more damage essentially, which is a decent amount, especially compared to like leveling up motivity or technical. And then I also switched around. So I switched my my main grindstone to acid, which is another grindstone I purchased recently. And then I made sure I had the electric, like, quick grindstones. And then I switched, because the spectator for quick enemies is really, like, the key to my victory, because he helps distract. And so I was looking at the different wish stones, and I decided to go with the wish stone that resurrects him if he dies. That way, it's like, I can wait for an opportune moment when, like, he's getting beat up and he's low on life, and I can use it then. And then, hopefully, that'll, like, bring him back and give me some breathing room. And then I can use it twice, right, because I unlocked that already to use 2 wish stones. I was like, all right, cool. The other thing I equipped was the Fable Recharger. So remember, the Fable is like your weapons magic attack, essentially. And so you can have up to 3. You can carry 3 at a time. I had like 50 in storage, so I've never used this thing. But I'm like, now's a good time to use this. So I'm going to go in there. When you grab your dropped souls, your dropped ergo, it charges up that meter all the way. At least it does for me. Maybe that's just the build I have. I can't remember. And so then that's one time, and then when I'm in the bat, so I can use it against him during the first phase, or even during the second phase, because the first phase really wasn't that difficult. So I'm more built for that, so I'm like, okay, I can use it in the second phase, and then I can charge up and use it again, because it does so much damage, and it has a really high chance to like stun. And if it stuns, then I can do like a fatal attack, and that's going to like knock off, like, between the 2 of those, that's going to knock off like most of his life. And then I just kind of got to like power through the rest with heat pulse charges and stuff, which is the Eustace Flask. So that was my new game plan. So I was going to go in, use a quick grindstone, and just like fight the King of Puppets. And then I'm going to use the acid versus the King of Puppets Romeo, and if I need to, I'll slap on another quick grindstone. I ended up not using any grindstone at the beginning. I just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to fight this guy. And the battle was a little bit harder because I wasn't using grindstones, and I wasn't my Spectre wasn't using grindstones, and so he got a little bit more attacks. I had to use the pulse charge a few times more than I was hoping to, but I was able to get through him. And then when Romeo comes, I was able to like work that guy down real fast, because I essentially, like, my Spectre held on to him. I hadn't chased me around for a little bit until the Spectre got a hold of him. And when Spectre got a hold of him, I went up there and we reamed into him. And the nice thing about the weapon attack is that it doesn't need like stamina necessarily. You just like do it, and when you're done with it, your stamina is like recharged. At least it is for me. That's what I've noticed. So it's like you can do it and then you can hit him, or if you need to use a fatal attack, you can like fatal attack him. So I used it. I think I used it, and then I fatal attacked him, I think, the first time. And then so that got him down to like below half health. And then I like backed up, I got the fuck out of there, and then I left the Spectre to fight with him, and I was keeping an eye on the Spectre's life to make sure he didn't die. And I like charged up my Fable again, and then I healed myself up all the way, and I ran back in, and I hit him a couple more times until he got like a little stun, and then I used it, and I don't think I even need to use the Fable the second time. I think we just killed him at that point. Like, Spectre used his like superpower thingy or whatever. And then between that and he was taking acid damage for a lot of the time, because I rolled in there with acid and used like the superpower immediately. But anyway, we like crushed him out. Like, Spectre didn't die. Everything was good. It was like close for a second there, but we did it. We killed the King of Puppets, and it's like, and then Jiminy is like, oh, now that the King of Puppets is dead, the puppets should become more docile. And I was like, cool. So then he's like, but let's go check behind the stage, essentially. So I was like, all right. So we go out the back entrance, and there's Geppetto just hanging out, and he's like, oh, my son, you've made me so proud. Now that you've destroyed the King of Puppets, we can start reclaiming the city. The puppets are going to be more docile and easier to manage, like, because the King of Puppets was clearly the one managing the frenzy or whatever. And he's like, I took a lot. It took the funniest part. He's like, oh, I took a big risk coming out here, but I knew you could have needed my help. But it looks like you didn't need my help. And I'm like, so you came out here for no fucking reason. Whatevs. And then we work our way, and again, the puppets are all just like sad. And Jiminy makes some comments. He's like, they seem really depressed, which is odd because they're puppets. And like that's the more the theme of the whole thing is these puppets have like more intelligence than like we're giving them credit for, or these people are giving them credit for. But we work our way to like Laziano's or Lazziani's bazaar essentially, and get to the save point, the Stargazer there. And once we get it, so it's all puppets and they're sad and they're all easily dispatchable because they just like lay there sadly. And sometimes at some point I was like, I'm just gonna walk through. If they're not going to attack me, I feel kind of bad. But then they started attacking me if I just walked past them. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do fatal attacks all the way down the row. And that's what I did. And then there were some saw-faced dogs that were like a little bit more tricksy, but not too much. So we get into the bazaar, and now we're back, and the puppets are gone at this point. Oh, and then Geppetto's also like, the next step is to find a cure for the petrification disease. So we got to go talk to the alchemists, because they're the ones who are going to have it. And don't trust them, and they're crazy, but that's like our only option at this point. And then we learn from Geppetto when we go back to the hotel that there's 4 more areas. So initially I was like, this game doesn't seem that long because there's only these 4 areas and I'm already here. But it's like, oh no, there's 4 more areas. This game is going to be like plus 20 hours because I'm already at like hour 14. And granted, some of that is just sitting because I got to like run up and check on my kids or whatever. But I've been playing this game for at least 10 hours. So this game's at least a 20-hour experience, I would imagine, unless these areas are pretty short. So we enter the bazaar, and at this point, I get to the first Stargazer, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go check this stuff out. And as soon as I go to the teleport to teleport to the hotel, I notice that there's a record to pick up from the opera house, and it's like, oh, my friend, the lady, she died. So she did. So I go back there, and she's dead, and so I pick up her record, and then I also pick up like what's it called? Like a cameo, like the thing that people put, a locket. That's what it is. Cameo's not what it is. It's a locket. So, and it's a matching locket because there's 2 lockets. There's one for the white sister and one for the red sister, right? And they're both like, we still don't know the white sister's name because it's like crossed off essentially in the locket that I can't remember her name, is Andalani or whatever, the singer lady, the red lady. So that's like a cute little story. That's kind of sad. They like loved each other and missed each other and weren't able to be together for some reason or whatever. But we get the record, we get more humanity, and I guess I hit like a threshold for humanity because when I go back and talk to Sophia, she's like, "You look different." And then there's a cutscene, and I now have longer hair because originally I had like a very much like a boy cut. Now the hair is down to the shoulders. So I don't know if I gain like more humanity. I get like long hair, which would be fun. But yeah, that's cool. And Geppetto notices, and he makes like some comments. He's like, "Oh wow, I didn't expect this to happen. This was not expected at all." And he's, even when I'm walking out the door, he like comments behind my back. He's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do about this. Like, I don't know what to even think about this." Then we find out that the lady in charge, the madam of the house, of the hotel, she's got the petrification disease. So I go talk to her, and there's a moment when I can lie to her because she's like, "This is me when I'm young. I was so feisty and full of life, and like, do I still look like that? Do I resemble her?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, girl." And she's like, "Oh, you're so sweet and such a gentleman." I appreciate that. I get a new amulet from the guy I lied to. Let's see what else. Oh, the puppet, the concierge puppet. He leaves me a note at the desk to meet him out in the back, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to kill this motherfucker." So I go back there, and no, he just wants a chit chat, and it's the same thing. He's like, "Do you think puppets could ever be in love?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What proof do you have?" And I show him the wedding ring from the guy from the previous quest, and he's like, "Oh, that gives my heart so much hope because he's in love with like the maitre d' or whatever, the old lady who's dying." And he's like, "I know I can never confess because she's so frail, and I don't want to like mess it up. But and in my heart, I know that even though I'm a puppet, I can love and I can be in love with her, and I am in love with her." And it's like, "Oh, that's so sweet." So many sweet stories to tell. So now back to the dredge of the darkness of this arcade, if you will. We've run into a couple more new guys. There's these hulking monstrosities in the arcade that were shockingly easy to kill. There were 2 of them, like, oh goddamn, there's 2 of these in a row. They're just very slow, and I just like charge attack them, step back while they punch the ground very slowly, and then charge attack them again and hit them a couple times. Like, they were very easy to kill. The only puppets we have are these like harder to kill puppets that don't stagger as much. But mostly it's just the zombies who throw shit. There's one of the big zombies that I have to like one of the mini boss kind of style zombies that is super annoying because they're kind of quick and big and they take a lot of hits. And then we get these new other zombies. So before we had these things hanging from the ceiling in these zombie areas, and they'd plop down, and if you were in them, you got decay or whatever. But now they'll plop down, you'll get decay, and sometimes like guys will pop out of them, and they're like even crazier looking. So there's some seedling action going there. So kill those guys. I'm trying to think of anything particular in the arcade. There was that quest from that lady where she's like, "Can you go get me some booze from the basement of like the arcade?" And I'm like literally in the wine cellar where there's like it's a pool of wine, like it's like a lake of wine, and like I'm like, okay, cool, so the booze must be here, and it's like I don't see it anywhere, and like, so I might look up a guide for this because I'm like, okay, I'm here, motherfucker. Like, where's this shit at? We'll see if I get to like a boss Spectre cup and I haven't found this thing yet. I'll look it up, But thus far, the game has been like, hey, if you just go to like where you're asked to go, you can usually find it. But after that gesture thing with that last quest, I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to be like fucking around with these gestures and like trying to figure this thing out. Like, I'll just fucking Google it. I don't like it, but I'm gonna do it. But yeah, so there's another guy selling stuff here. He's a third one, and he's got some sass mouth about coming over here and selling stuff. But I'm like, oh, whatever, bro. But that's kind of it. There was like a note that I vaguely remember being interesting, but I don't remember exactly what it said. It's something, I think it was like a redemption for like the guy who created the petrification disease, or the monstrosity disease, like something that would cure it or something he created. I'm not quite sure. I was trying to remember exactly what was said. Let me think. Yeah, something. I don't remember. Anyway. And then there's like the Grand Expedition or the Grand Exhibition, which is at the end of the arcade that people keep hinting at. Oh, the other enemy is occasionally there'll be these like pods that produce a lot of gas, which create decay. So I can destroy them, and then I can get through the decay, or I can power through the decay. Those are kind of my options. But yeah, the arcade's nice. It's got a lot of stores. You can go into the stores, get some items, fight some bad guys. Like I said, you go into the basement. The wine cellar is kind of interesting area. There's like a little garden area. There's some bathrooms you can go. It's like, hey, there's bathrooms in this world. Good for them. But yeah, I think we're just working our way over to the Grand Exhibition, something like that. At this point, I got a little lost in here. I got turned around quite a bit, partially because there was like a break between my, I don't play this all at one time. It's like 30 to 60-minute chunks. But yeah, I got lost in here. It's pretty confusing. I ended up walking around just killing things for a while until I finally stumbled upon the correct way to go. I knew there was like a stairway down. I just had to find it. So I did spend a good amount of time, like 20 minutes or so, just killing things, wandering around. Eventually, I find my like way down to, I guess, the actual wine cellar, because down here I met this big asshole of a guy with a club, like one of these clown guys, like the ones I fought in the Opera House kind of looking thing. Only, yeah, it was just one big club. I'm trying to remember if there's two, but no, just the one big club. And took care of that business, and here it is. After I'd gone through 4 wine cellars, this fucking place, I finally found the wine for the old lady that she was looking for, and I was like, sweet, time to take it back. Worked my way up, unlocked kind of the last shortcut, so I'm pretty sure I'm close to the boss at this point. And the last shortcut takes you right back to the Stargazer, which is kind of the center of this arcade area. And at that point, I started getting like messages from Vanini. He was like, hello, anyone out there? Hello. And then, so I go to the Stargazer and click on it, and there's an option there now to hear what he has to say. And he's like, oh, good. I didn't realize, but now I know this is how the Puppet King spoke with the puppets, is that you can actually use Ergo, like a cellular transmission. That's not what he calls it, but to communicate. So that must be how he was doing. Also, since I discovered this, I found there was a communication coming from the Great Exhibition. The Great Expedition again. Exhibition. So someone must be alive down there. I don't know. It's probably a trap, but you should go check it out anyway. So now it's time to head to the old lady to get her booze. Pretty simple. We just head back to whatever it's called, Rosa Linda Street or whatever, and give her a booze. And she's like, "Oh, this is a fine vintage. Thank you so much." And she gives us some bullshit item. And I was like, all right, whatever. No record. Nah? Alright. Fuck you. So so onward back to the arcade, and the now open door leads directly to the boss. Actually, it doesn't lead directly to the boss. I apologize. I got mixed up in my head. It leads directly to the exhibition. So we head out, and then Jiminy starts talking about the exhibition and how it was like a show, it was supposed to be a showcase to the whole world about puppet technology and about all this good stuff. But then the petrification disease occurred, and then the puppet frenzy and everything else, and it's kind of like just been sitting here ever since. And so we work our way over there. We run into a new enemy. He's kind of like a big guard guy. There's more of the guard guys with the guns. Sometimes they just have big swords. That's new, I think, from this point. And the big sword thing, we ran into like some other characters who had like big swords. Pretty much they just block with them. So if you hit them a couple times with strong attacks, the swords break. But before that, it does less damage. We also run into our old friend Shield guy a few times. One time it's super annoying because you're like on rafters trying to like balance and not fall down. And I fell down once, and I was like, man, fuck that guy. But they're really not that complicated. Like you really just hit them and then dodge back, and they like do a kick, and you run up and hit them again, dodge back. Pretty simple, straightforward. Also, my favorite enemy in the whole game my second favorite, actually, my favorite is fucking Clown Guy, which we do run into again. But my second favorite, the spinny standstill guys who just continuously launch bombs at you. And again, they always come in pairs or threesomes or foursomes. And so it's just super annoying because you're killing one, and then you gotta like dodge, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. Anyway, and they're easy to kill, and they have killed me, but usually it's because I'm trying to hurry up through, but they're just annoying, and I don't like them. Okay, so the exhibition is cool. It's got the other new enemy here is this kind of it's like it's mechanical. It's like a mechanical creature. It's got 4 arms, 2 with razor blades, 2 with drills, and it does these like sweeping dance kind of like attacks. They're kind of annoying. They go down, and they're like a tougher enemy, but they go down somewhat easily. You fight like 2 in the main exhibition hall, but in 2 different hallways, and then later on you're in a room and you get attacked by like 2 of them at the same time, and that was annoying as hell. But like most things in this game, when there's a challenge afoot, the best course of action is to retreat and deal with each one like individually, right? Rurouni Kenshin taught me this lesson when I watched it as like a teenager, and like it has served me well in most video games that are action oriented, where it's like, this is overwhelming, we need to back up and like rethink strategy here, or just take people on one at a time, right? And if you haven't seen Rurouni Kenshin, it's fantastic. Mwah. I saw like the original fan sub or whatever years ago, before like Ronin X or whatever it's called, which I've never seen, or the live action or anything. But that was his whole thing. It's like, how do you fight a group of enemies? Well, you run, and then they'll run after you, but not everyone runs at the same speed, so then you can fight them one at a time after that point. And it's like, that's fucking genius. And for these Soulsborne games, it is the best strategy when you're like, you enter a situation, you're like, I have entered a situation I was not prepared for. Or like, I need to rethink strategy. It's like, the best course of action is to retreat. Which you can't do for bosses, but for most other creatures, you can like back the fuck out of there pretty far. So utilize that. We get through that. Oh, there's like a big soldier. So there's regular soldier with sword or gun or flamethrower. Then there's like a big soldier, and they're kind of like little mini bosses. Like I get quartz from one. Anytime I get quartz from something, it's like a mini boss, and then later on it'll show up as like a regular enemy usually. But there's 2 of them around the exhibition. Both of them are outside. One of them has like a club, like electric club, and the other one has like an electric axe. Neither of them were that difficult. I use my typical strategy of like getting an object between the 2 of us, and then doing charge attacks until they eventually cease to exist. And then occasionally if I stun them, or they get into like kind of like a hazy move, because there's like stun where you can go and do a fatal attack, and then oftentimes enemies have, and there's an enemy later on that literally like every time I do a charge attack, he gets kind of like, he stumbles a little bit and pauses, and so then I just keep doing charge attacks, and it's like super easy to kill him. But if I get like the mini stun, then I'll run up and like hit him with like a combo and then dodge back away. But we get through that. I'm trying to think if there's anything that important about this area. It's cool. It has a lot of the robots. Like the robot I fought in like the factory, the big giant one. They have like one here. They have like my friend the clown, but in cases, right? Because this was supposed to be like an exhibition. So there's all sorts of like kind of every enemy you see, you've played against, like all the puppet enemies. You see cases with them and stuff. We get another call from our riddle friend. Has something to do with like, you're not born until you're cracked, until you break or something, which is an egg. And then he gives us another riddle to find the Trinity key, which was like, the cold lady needs to point somewhere or something. And literally, I was like, oh goddamn, what do you mean by cold lady? But if you just go to like 2 more rooms down like the path, you run into 2 statues, and you just got to turn one so they point at each other, and then you get the Trinity key. And then I used that back at the Opera House where the last Trinity door was, and got some more junk that I don't really need. Golly. Okay. So there was that guy. Oh, some more new enemies. So as we get deeper in, we start reading stuff about the alchemists and how the alchemists have found this evolution thing and how they're utilizing the evolution to like make themselves stronger, and that the petrification disease, there's like more to it to them. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like a good thing. It's like the cure is like to evolve and to progress, and all that crazy bullshittery. So and then we also meet a lady. I can't remember what her name is, but she's a soldier who was sent from like outside Kraut to like investigate with a partner, and she's just like chilling. And we go up and she's like, "Oh, Jesus Christ." Well, we hear her talking when we're like going around the exhibition hall, and she's like, the puppet thing was one thing, but these monsters are something else, right? And that's like her repeated talk phrase. That's why I remember almost exactly what she said, because you hear it a couple times, and then when you talk to her, she says it, and then you hear it like when she goes to the hotel after you beat the boss of this level, and then she'll like say it to you again after she tells you like her kind of little story. So she's all jacked up. I mean, she's like fine, but she's all dirty and like lost her partner and lost her weapon, and she's just hanging out at the hotel. I'm sure there's more to that later on, but so we rescue her by beating the boss of the level. So we just work through the exhibition hall. It's a windy. There's the 1 stargaze, and then you just kind of work your way through the building, and then back doors and open doors. Oh yeah, so you run into the alchemists. So we finally run into some of these like alchemists, if you will. There's these guys who got like a mask, like a juicer mask, like they're on some goo, and we see these chambers with like blue goo and stuff, which we find out is like some sort of ergo goo, and the ergo is like the essence of like dead people or something, and that it's like the petrification disease comes from like ergo, I think. Anyway, so we start finding these chambers, and we find these guys, and they got like kind of machine guns. They shoot kind of like boop boop boo, like they do like some burst fire at us. But the bullets in this game are extremely easy to dodge as long as you're like somewhat paying attention. So not too hard. They fight like 3 or 4 of them, and then I ran into this like awful puppet thing, or this awful mutant thing, which just kind of like kicked my ass. I was able to beat it finally on my first try, but it was pretty close there. And then I was like out of life, out of health potions, out of everything, and I was like, well, hopefully there's like a shortcut real close to here. And so I go to the next area, and there's this big like arboretum area, and there's a door that's locked. Of course, it's fucking locked. And then a guy, like a big bruiser evolution guy, jumps down from the ceiling and like roars, and I'm like, God damn. And this isn't a mini boss. There's no like health at the bottom like the first clown I fought or anything like that. He's just a big asshole, and he does like wrestling moves. And I was like, oh man, fuck this guy. Oh yeah, the girl also mentioned like she'll go back to the hotel once we take care of Victor. And we read about Victor. Victor was like this wrestling champion in Kraut, and that he like died or was getting sick and was gonna die. And then like the alchemists like revitalized him. So that's giving us a hint that like this evolution thing, this like whatever the alchemists are doing. I mean, he's obviously the boss, but it's gonna be something like that. And not to spoil 2 minutes from now when I get to it, but Victor is literally like a giant, more impressive version of this like little guy we fight. So this is, if anything, this is just like, hey, you haven't, which is very good game design in my opinion, because it's like I'm fighting this thing, and I'm like, I've never fought anything like this before. It's kind of awful, but I'm able to utilize the retreat trick to retreat back far enough where it will like come at me, and then it will just like slowly back up, and then I can do like dashing attacks, because I literally have like no life. Like I have like my bar is almost empty. It's like lower than half, and I have no healing stuff left. And I don't want to go all the way back and work my way all the way back over here. And I'm like, there's got to be like a shortcut or something like right after this point, which there was. So I'm like, I'm just going to give this my best shot and see what happens. And he almost kills me. And then I'm because the pulse charge, the SS Flax will heal when you do damage. So eventually I get one of those back. I heal up. He almost kills me again. I think I have like a sliver of life left. For real, with no way to heal myself. So then I'm able to finally defeat him my first try, just being like a jackass, essentially, like kiting him. And I was like, thank goodness. And that leads us to another area. I was able to heal from that, if I remember correctly. And then that leads us to another area with a couple more of these asshole guards. Oh, no. I don't think there was any more asshole guards. Yeah, there wasn't. No. Okay, after we beat him, we like head up some stairs, and then we're like down one of the halls in the main hall, and we can like kick a ladder down, essentially. There's like And that leads us back to the Stargazer, and I was like, oh, fantastic. And then I turn around to see what was back the other way, and I see a Spectre Bull, so it's like, all right, here's the boss. So then I go heal up, and level up my capacity a little bit, and like check some of the items I got, and kind of rearrange some gear, and then we come back. So Victor is an asshole. So we roll into this arena, and he comes stomping out like a professional wrestler and is like calling me out and saying how great he is and how he's ready to stomp face and do all this stuff and he's the best. And then we proceed to wreck his house for the most part. He just does like these, he's a big guy, big mutant guy, and he does like kind of wrestling moves. He does like this jump kick thing, and he does this like the hammer down thing with your elbow, and he does these big punches. But you know, it's one of those things. He's slow, and my build is good for this, so I just kind of like pound, dodge, pound, dodge. He does like some kind of leap, like the leaping kick, which got me a couple times. But we're able to get him down pretty well to the and then at 50% health, there's like another cutscene, and he like rips out all his like goo mechanics, and he like supercharges. And he's like, ah! And then I still doing okay for a minute, but then the Spectre died, and it's like, oh, ruh-roh. And I was down on life and everything, so then I died. Sad times. So I come back, I switch up my gear a little bit, like come with a little better game plan, and I'm able to take him down on that second try pretty easily, just kind of changing things up a little bit. Like the first time I came into it, I used the Wish Stone to resurrect my Spectre, which gives him like 10% health. So he got killed pretty quick after that. So this time I was like, no, fuck that. We're just gonna go in tough and choose more grindstones. That's usually how this ends up working. If I can't beat someone the first try, I like, all right, what grindstones we're gonna load up with here and take care of business. And so that's what we do. We load up with grindstones, and I save my ultimate attack, and I save. And you know, I use my Fable things to like charge my ultimate attack so I can use it a couple times. But I save most of my stuff. I give the Spectre like fire damage for the first round, and then I give it to him again for like this round 2, and then I grind my stuff up and Fable my stuff a couple times, and it just turns them up. Like I produce so much damage so fast at that point that like I'm just churning through the second half of this guy, which is how I beat most. Honestly, this is how most things go. Like once I kind of get like a feel for like the battle, and I can dodge out of some of the stuff and kind of get like an idea of like a timing when a good time to attack is. Because I would have beat him the first time actually. I'm pretty sure, because I had 2 attacks. I had 2 of these super attacks, but both of them got interrupted because I like timed them incorrectly. So I was starting to do them, and then he like punched me, and I was like, oh man. And then it happened again, and like he only had like 20 or less percent health left, and I feel like those attacks do like 4,000 damage. Like they do a lot. So I feel like that would have kind of taken it enough where I would have been able to get through him, but. Oh well, got him the second time. Once we kill him the second time, he takes a lightning spear to the back in a cutscene, and then we see this like crazy looking thing in like a cage outfit, and he kneels, and then we meet Jackass McGee. I can't remember what his name is, something Monroe or Munson or whatever. He's like the head alchemist. He's a real asshole. But he just talks about evolution and how they use the petrification disease and like the cure for the petrification disease and all that bullshittery is like to evolve and to become stronger, and how some may fall, but then the what is it called, like the whatever will rise to the top. And that this is the way forward, and can't you? And then I get a question where it's like, you agree, you agree, and I lie to him because that's my goal, and he's like, that's a lie, but and I'm like, good, and then I get like more warmth at this conversation. But anyway, he's like, you can come to the island of alchemists, and you can join us, or you can, try to stop us, but it won't work because there's nothing you can do, ha ha ha. And then he tosses me a key to that room behind me, like Saint something room. And then he just stands there, and I'm like, whatever. So I say goodbye to my Spectre homie, and I use the Stargazer to get them going. I don't like him looking at me. And then I run ahead a little bit to see what's going on. And then we meet Fox and Cat again. And they're Satapotamus because Cat's got the petrification disease, and they've been working for the alchemists to get like the gold coins from the gold coin tree. But they're out, and they're tired of working for the alchemists. And so do I have any? And I'm like, nah, bro, I literally don't. So they're like, oh, if you get any, come back and please help us. And I was like, okay. So then I head back to the other door, and open up inside, and it's Sophia, but it's not Sophia. It's like a manifestation of Sophia, because she talks about how she can she's like, oh, I'm surprised I could create like an illusion as well as project my voice, because she's done the projecting voice thing before. Right? That's how the game starts. And then she tells me about the room and how like the gold coins will let me like find a new path. And essentially this is just, you come here with gold coins, and the gold coins let you respec your arm, your stats, or something else. I think your quartz stuff. So it's like, oh, that's nice. This is here. And then she just talks more about making a choice and how I'm going to have to make a choice whether I'm going to destroy the alchemist or I'm going to like help people or something. There's a lot of choices in this aspect of it. But I don't make the choice now. So we just talk about that for a little bit. And then I head back to get gold coins. And then there's some fun stuff that happens here. So the guy, the wolf face guy, the dog face guy, whatever he is, he's gone. But then the lady who kind of helps me upgrade my weapons, she's like, oh, I made a glove. Could you please take it to the dog face guy? He's out in like the swamp, which is the next area. Will you do that for me? And I'm like, yeah, for shizzle. And then Pucelle or whatever, the old lady's puppet who kind of runs the hotel, he's like, I hear there's an alchemist who has a cure for the petrification disorder, but you gotta use it early enough. If you could find that, I would be most grateful, so we could use it on her to help her. And so I go talk to him and get some gold coins, and he's like, yeah, I can make it, but I mean, she's gonna die eventually. So as long as her organs aren't failing, she'll live, but she'll eventually be in pain and die. It was kind of confusing. I almost felt like this was not translated correctly, like the point. Because essentially, the way I interpreted it, there's a lot of like talking about pain and dying, and like I can get rid of the petrification disease so she doesn't die quickly, but then there'll be like a longer term of pain or something. And it just seemed like she can just die now peacefully because, you know, before she gets too old, or you can cure this thing and then eventually she'll like get older and sicker and die some other way or something. I don't know. But I was like, but I have a choice. So he gives me the cure, and then I head back to the puppet, and we have this like a similar conversation. I essentially, Pinocchio tells him like what's going on with that, and he's like, I don't know what to do, and so it's my choice. And I'm like, give her, man, let her live her life out, like fuck it. And he's like, I'm gonna do that. That's a great idea. And then when I talk to a lady later, she's like, oh, I feel so wonderful. I don't feel tired and sick anymore. I feel like I have a new lease on life and all this stuff. And I was like, I think I made the right decision here. Oh yeah, the drunk old lady gave me a coin, like a Venini coin, so I take it to his puppet, and he's like, oh, this is like, he like rants on about it. It's like a collector's, and it's like from the first edition, and bullshit, and I'm like, okay. And then he gives me like some more useless junk that I don't really need. And then I talk to Venini while I'm here, because he's the only one in this area who's been to like the Alchemist Island. And he's like, I don't really remember how to get there, but I do remember that you need like a golden ergo, and you can get one of those in the swamp, so you should go there. And I'm like, all right, cool. All right, cool, got it. So then head back to the exhibition, find the fox and the black cat, give them the gold, give them the gold coin. So for the ergo cure or whatever, they're so grateful. I finally get another fucking record. There's like 10 of these, and I have like 5. And I'm like, how much more is this game? Like, where are these fucking records at? Am I missing some? I may be. But they give me a record, and they're super grateful, and they're like the nicest they've ever been, and they're not like sleazy or any bullshittery, really, as they have been. And then I get like more warmth, and I was like, good, I made the good decision. And then I found my cat, because I tried to pet the cat earlier, and the cat was like, rah! And now I pet the cat, and the cat's like, what up, homie? And I'm like, all right, I think I'm on the right track, getting my humanity. That's what I wanted. So even if I don't get the best ending or whatever, at least I accomplished what I wanted to. I might just look at a guide when I get to like the final boss and just see if there's like some stuff I can knock out that I didn't like soft lock myself out of, or lock myself out of until like a New Game Plus. And then I might do it, just because I'm not going to play New Game Plus. And I got too much other shit to do, and this game is fun, but there's so many fun games. Anyway, excuse me. So now to the swamp. And in the swamp returns my third favorite character and my first favorite enemy. the fucking fire guy with the shovel. There's 2 of them. 3, I think there's just 2. There's 2 of them. And then the clown guy shows up again. Fuck you, clown guy. He's not easy this time because I trap him and like at the edge of a cliff. So I'm like standing on top of this like little cliff, and I can do like charge attacks down, and he can't really hit me back. And I just beat the shit out of him, and I was like, that felt so good. And now, what other new enemies are in this area? There's like dogs that explode. That's fun. But you can kill them pretty quick, and they don't do anything. So we work our way through the swamp and into like a tower, and then up the tower, and then at the very top of the tower is a guard, but he's got like a cape and a fire sword. That guy was an asshole to beat. He killed me once, but not too shabby. And then there's our friend, the wolf face guy. And I give him the glove, and he's like, "Oh yes, I saved so." He's an arrogant asshole, but he's like, "Oh yes, I saved so many people." And we're walking up to him. We hear him being like, "Oh, I don't know if I should do what the alchemists say." I mean, I don't really like any of those people at the hotel, so I don't give a fuck what happens to them. But like, I don't feel like it's necessarily a good idea to like help them out either, the alchemists, because they're kind of shady as shit. And they walk up, he's like, "Oh, hey, nothing. So what's going on?" So I give him that thing and talk about the girl and how she saved him. And he's like, "Oh, I've saved lots of people, blah, 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 blah." And then he tries the glove on. Like, he acts like he doesn't remember her. And then he tries the glove on and it doesn't fit. And he's like, "Oh, this stupid fucking glove. Like, whatever. It's stupid. Tell her she's dumb." And then under his breath, he's just like him. And they're like, "Oh, there's like a lot more to this." And he like has a lot more remembrance, like what's going on with all this bullshittery. So that's interesting. They're doing like car searches here. That's fascinating. Huh. Oh, sorry, I'm at the gate going to work. Okay, so then I go back and tell her, and of course I lie to her because that's the whole point, right? And I'm like, "Oh yeah, he loved the glove. He thought it was fantastic. He totally remembers you, girl. You're the best." So that was funny. And she's super excited because, hey, he loved your glove. And she's like, "Oh, I've never made gloves before. I do weapon stuff, but, he's missing a finger because I feel really bad because he's missing a finger because he lost it when he saved me. And it just means so much to me that I didn't starve to death in like this collapsed building because he came and saved me and my friends and family." Sounds like there was more than just her. Anyway, so we go back, we get the new talisman. The new talisman heals me, but I need a lot more capacity to use it at this juncture. But I'm like, hell yeah. Like a slow heal? That sounds awesome. Like, that would save me like a lot of time. Even if it's really slow, because a lot of times I'm just kind of fucking around, or like I have to pause for a second to go take care of something while I'm playing. So like, excellent. That's great. But I'm enjoying not being heavy, so I've been investing a lot of energy, a lot of ergo into my capacity. So moving on from here, we cross over into a large open area with a big swampy decay corruption swamp. And then to make matters even funner, there's a tower in the distance that is firing rockets at me the whole time. And then it's my favorite I have so many favorite enemies. But another favorite enemy of mine, the white puppets that do not get staggered. And so you really gotta like hit run, or just dodge around and like when you combo them, they don't like stop. They just keep attacking. So fuck those guys. But there's a bunch of them, and the motors or the rockets will hit them too. They don't explode that much. They're more like cannons, if you will, like a cannon shot. But it looks like a rocket. Like in the few times I was able to see it. So I clear out most of the stuff, and then I'm like, "Oh, I can go up to the tower. I'm gonna go fucking do that." So I start heading up there, and there's like the police guy who was like the first boss from the very beginning of the game. Only now he's got like an electric baton and he does like a totally different attack. And this is the one I mentioned a little bit earlier, that when you do a charge attack, it stuns him for a moment. So then you just keep doing charge attacks and he can't do anything. The problem with at first, because you fight two of these like back to back almost. The problem with the first one is that I gotta like bring him away from the cannon because I can charge attack him and then I gotta move. But then the cannon hits him, but the cannon really doesn't do that much damage. And it doesn't stun him, so then he does like his like he will constantly do like super attacks as well, which is like this running like he'll do like a running charge attack, not like I charged to do the attack, right? Like I'm holding the button down to charge attack versus like rushing, a rush attack. We'll call it a rush attack. So it does these rush attacks, and so I get him down, and then I pull the next one. Well, actually, I go up the tower first, and then I destroy the cannon, and I kill like the guy who's like standing over there running it. That was a fun mechanic. I actually like that little area. There's a lot of like stuff going on that was interesting, and none of it felt like cheap at all. So I actually really enjoyed it. But then the tower doesn't go anywhere. That's like the end of the tower, and then we follow this little like corruption river to like this cavern system, and we find another one of these police guys. So again, I draw him out to the open area, which is now picked clean completely, and then I just charge attack him until he dies. And at this point, we find our next. We find our next stargazer, and we find another puppet who's been released from the Covenant. And to reiterate, the Covenant is like the 3 laws of robotics. It's like puppets will not hurt humans, all this stuff. They can't lie, they can't do whatever. But this guy can, and he can feel emotions and stuff. And he's like, "Can you help me be more human?" And so I teach him to cry, and I teach him to clap when he's happy. And I guess there's more. I don't know. That's what I was able to teach him at this point. The giant swamps. So, after meeting our friend the puppet and giving him some good advice about how to feel emotions, we enter a giant swamp. So I looked into it a little more in the game, actually, not even on a guide or a walkthrough or anything. And there's several things that are acid damage that are like the corruption and the decay and all that is caused by acid, and if you become fully decayed or whatever, then you it degrades your durability of your weapon as well as like damaging you somewhat. So that's good to know. Anyway, so it's giant swamp pit or acid pit, I guess here, and then there's two of our friends, the giant puppets with the wrecking balls that are just moseying about, and then a whole bunch of my super friends, the white puppets, some with no legs, some with legs, and then there's a cannon shooting at us, and then a few just like stupid lame ass puppets. So there's a lot of shit going on in this area. There's a lot of stuff to pick up. There's quite a few butterflies. I don't know if I mentioned the butterfly thing before. If you've played the Dark Souls games, you know about the lizards. The butterflies are just the lizards. They're not as good as the lizards because the lizards give you very specific items that you want, while the butterflies tend to give you bullshit that I more want because I'm a hoarder in these kind of games and I want everything just in case. But nothing that has been that useful, to be completely honest. Like, I will sacrifice my life to try to kill one of these butterflies before it disappears. And then I don't think I've used a single item that they've dropped this entire fucking game. But there's like a whole bunch. There's like 4 or 5 butterflies in this area. And there's also a Venini chest, which opens up more stuff you can buy from Venini's puppet back at the hotel when you return to him. It's like fancy Venini's chest or something. Anyway, so this was, I actually had a good time despite all the bullshittery, because I learned myself how to defeat the giant puppets. You just got to be patient because they're slow as shit. And so they do an attack and then you can go beat them up a little bit and then you just got to dodge back with the next attack. Plus, if I position them one at a time so that the motor would shoot through them to me and it did damage to them. So that was nice. So I was able to get through this, kill everything, pick everything up, destroy my 2 friends, which both gave me quartzes. So, thank you, my friends. It took a minute. It took quite a bit of time. I think I probably spent like 40 minutes just fucking around in this little area. But I had a good time. Probably not 40 minutes, but got my quartzes and had a good time. So then we head to the next little area right after this big swampy hot mess. And it is like a little shanty. I don't even call it a town. It's like just like some shanty buildings sitting around, and then we have the carcasses, is what the game calls them. I learned that because I have an item that increases damage to carcasses. But the mutants. So I kill mutants, and it's very like Blighttown-y in that, from Dark Souls 1, in that it's vertical. It's all vertical, and that if you fall to death. So I never fell. Well, I failed one time because I saw a shiny bauble and I was like, I must have. And I jumped on the wrong part of like the breakaway thing. So I fell on the part that broke away and I fell to my death. So sad times. There's also a stargazer here in this portion, which is odd because I can literally run with like within like a minute to get to the next stargazer. And usually there's just like shortcuts. So this is the first time in a while. I remember at the beginning of the game there was like a lot of stargazers, but this one was kind of, I was like, oh wow, that was really fast. Like I almost feel like that's unnecessary. I mean, I appreciate all the like the safe spots you can like bounce back to, but I was honestly like, what? There's another one already? Like, goddamn. And there's even a shortcut. So there's a shortcut back to the other one, and then there's a stargazer here, and I was like, I don't understand the point of this, but I guess I'll take it, right? Like, why complain? We also get a warning on a pamphlet, like on a pole before we enter this area, and it's like, watch out for the rocks. Some asshole's throwing rocks down the hill. And I was like, oh man, they're gonna throw rocks at me and I'm gonna break bridges and this is gonna be awful. And then none of that happened. But when I got to the cave after this little shanty section, that's where it's just continuous giant balls of puppet goo being thrown down, fiery puppet goo that kills you instantly going down. So you gotta dodge around and move around, and eventually you make it to the top of this area, and when I first got there, there's like an item in the middle of a bridge, and I was like, I can grab that item and still make it out of here before getting hit, and I could not. But it helped that I died there, because it taught me that I could jump down from there and get to an area. And at first I was like, ooh, a secret area. I'm glad I got hit. That's great. So I go down there, there's a butterfly, nothing's shaking my belief that this is a secret area, until I walk out, and I'm like, oh, this is clearly the way I was supposed to go. Oh well. I'm just a dumbass. So So we get through the fire. I think I left an item over there. I'm like thinking about it. I'll probably go back and get it because I'm a hoarder in these kind of games because I'm an idiot. But maybe I'll just be like, fuck it, whatever. Oh, this whole time too, we're hearing about the monster, the big monster, the gooey monster, the mutated monster of all the gooey mess at the end, at the highest point or whatever of this area, and so obviously that's the boss, right? So we get past, and so after we get past the fiery balls, we go up, we kill some more puppets. There's another fucking bear. I take care of it pretty easily because my super attack was charged up. Open up a few more treasure chests that have a bunch of shit that I'm never going to use. At this point, I'm just using quartz. And I want like a full moon, a dark full moon covenant or whatever, so I can upgrade my spear to level 4. That's all I really want. There's just 2 things I want, and so when I get the quartz at least, I haven't gotten one of those full things. I'm like, yes, thank you. So hopefully I'll get a full moon, dark full moon covenant or whatever at some point in the hopefully near future. So we get past the shanty town, and you hear some like high pitched giggling or chit chatting, and then this puppet breaks through like a barrier, and is like, ta-da! And when I say puppet, I know like most of this game is puppets, but this is like legitimately like a puppet. Like when you think of someone doing like a puppet show in like medieval France or whatever. That's what it is. It's like a giant one of those. So it's got like the big kind of bobble head with like the big wooden nose. It's almost like a Pinocchio puppet, right? If you're watching like, if you have like the puppet of Pinocchio, not like even the Disney version, like how you would imagine like the original Italian guy like thought about a puppet. And he just like flops around. And he doesn't do that much damage because at first I was like, he was really hitting me a lot. But I was like, oh, I'm like taking no damage from this guy. So I was like, okay, well, let's just pound on him. So we pound. And, you know, it's just back and forth of us pounding on each other, and eventually I pound him to death, and that was fun. I got some more bullshit I don't need. And we move around, and we find like another big open lake of acid, and I'm like, I think if I fall down there, I will die for shizzle. Before we get there, we take the pathway, and it leads us back to the tower. So we can go in the tower, we can open up another shortcut, we can kill some more dudes, and then we get to the top, and we can destroy that motor or that cannon with that guy, and then we head down, and then we cross a couple bridges, and that's what takes us to like the second big lake. That definitely doesn't, I don't think there's anything down there. Like, it looks pretty far, and there's no baubles for me to like gain my attention. So we cross over that, and then there's another stargazer and the boss. But before the boss, and I say boss because there's obviously the Spectre pool there. So I turn around, and there's like a dog face guy, like a different dog face guy, not the guy that is an asshole. And he's standing in front of a gate, and he's like, oh, I'm a treasure hunter. I'm trying to be like Albedo or whatever. Albedo or something. Whatever the other dog face guy is, because he's like a treasure hunter, right? That's why I get like baubles from him, like the talismans, and I can trade the great souls for better weapon, for like super weapons or whatever. Oh, excuse me. And he's like, oh, that guy's so great. He's the best. You know, all that slander, all those rumors about him being an asshole, got to be false. And then you can like ask him, what rumors about him being an asshole? Because he's definitely an asshole. There's definitely something sketchy going on about him. And then he's like, oh yeah, you see this? Here's a wanted poster that someone put up, and something. And he's like, I'm gonna figure out how to get in this treasure cove, and then we can like go in there together and celebrate. And it'll be great. And you're like, cool, bro. And then I'm like, wanted poster, eh? So then I go find Albedo back at like the beginning of the swamp level, and he's like, oh, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey man, so why you wanted? And he's like, what are you talking about? And then I pull out the wanted poster, and he's like, what is this? I don't know. You know what? It's Moldado. Moldado's a total asshole. Fuck that guy. He's always trying to get to me. I didn't sell him an item that he wanted, and so he said, fuck you, I'm gonna ruin your life. And he tried to, but what are you gonna do? Turn this bounty in? There's no one to turn it into. Right? Okay, cool. So let's just forget this ever happened. You can keep it if you want. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. So after that super sketchy interaction, like, what the fuck? I head back to the other dog guy, and then I'm like, hey, I ran into that guy, and he said that it wasn't him, and that Moldado like betrayed him, or didn't betray him, just like, you know, wrote a nasty article for no reason, and that guy's an asshole. And then this dog guy, Jesus Christ, is like, Nah, he wouldn't. There's no way. They were like best friends forever. Like, in fact, when Albedo like saved me from the collapsing tower, so this guy was with our friend the weapon lady apparently, because this tower incident is like a big deal that I these two have like spoken of. It's been spoken of multiple times now. He's like, no, when he rescued me from the tower, when I was this crumble, he took me to Maldado, and they were like super homies. I don't think he would ever betray him. I don't know what's going on with this other guy you're talking to. I don't know. I gotta think about it. Come back later, I guess. Yeah. There's some. I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't know if you're talking to the right guy or I don't believe he told that to you or whatever. And I'm like, all right, fella. Well, whatever. Fuck you. I'm gonna go fight this boss and see what that shit's all about. So I did. And again, it's 2 phases. I do not like 2-phase bosses. I like to like see what I got, plan accordingly, and then you get like that surprise second, and you're like, I shouldn't have blown my load that first round. Oh well. What are you gonna do? I should just expect every boss is going to be 2 phases at this point. Probably even 3 phases at some point. Because fuck me. But, so we enter, like, the final area, and then, we get the cutscene with the monster. It's a big monster. It's got, like, knives at the end of tentacles, and it's all tentacly face, and it's got, like, snail eyes. And it's, like, hunched over on all fours, and it does, like, some charging attacks, and so, like... Not really a jump attack per se. It just does like it gets up on like 2 legs and it falls on you. But me and my Spectre, we beat the shit out of it pretty well. And get it down to we kill it essentially, and then it's like, all right, time for phase 2, motherfuckers. And what it does, it like, I don't like what's going on here, and while I just stand there and watch for no reason, and my Spectre, we're just like picking our noses and like, is it dead? I don't know. It's doing something. We'll worry about it later. It climbs into like this suit of armor, and then comes at us again. And I got murked, but it was some bullshittery. My computer at this time was kind of getting a little jumpy for some reason. Like it didn't freeze completely, but it would like skip frames a couple times. The first part of the fight, and then around here too. At some point, I was like rolling in to like do an attack. And then the thing kind of like paused for a second, and then I was dead. And I was like, I think I did a lot of damage. I clearly missed something. So I went back to the hotel to kind of get my head straight, and I'm thinking, and this is the game like told me about acid damage again and was telling me all about it, and this guy definitely did a lot of acid damage, and so I'm like, okay, well. I had like a shocker grindstone. I don't think that was doing too much, and I did use acid at the beginning, but he's clearly immune to that, so that's a waste of time. So I went back and I decided I was going to go with fire. See how that works, because those are like the 3 things you can really do. It's the shock, the fire, and the acid. And I'm like, shock didn't seem to be shock. He did get shocked. Like I saw the blue damage going in there, but with the acid, I don't think it was doing anything. That was a waste. So I switched my main grinder out to a one that does more stagger damage. And then I switched out my my electric quick grinder to fire, and then I switched out my like healing wish stone to a fire wish stone for my Spectre. So we're gonna roll with that and see what happens. So we hit this guy a few more times. It actually took a decent amount of time for me to finish this motherfucker off, to be completely honest. What an asshole. The first part was easy every time, but once he got in the armor, I was having some difficulty. But eventually, I just like loaded up power as much as I could across the board between my Spectre and I, and we just pounded that fucking face until he ceased to exist. It's at this time that the earthquake becomes, for Rizzle, like very serious. And we follow our path through here after we get the gold ergo. Down and around and up and down, and then we pop, boop, right into the first level, essentially. But now it's destroyed with earthquakes, and it's full of, instead of just like some random asshole puppets that are one-shot kills, we got a whole bunch of these evolution mutants, including one of my new favorite enemies. It's like a crazy, I don't know what to even call it. It's got like the face of that monster from what was that show everybody likes on Netflix? Stranger Things? Yeah, I think that was it. It's got like that face, but it's like a scorpion / behemoth from Final Fantasy. It's like this crazy thing. And what I don't like about it is that it could really take a beating. Now, the one here, you fight several of these. The one and they always disappear when they die, so that's nice. The one here, you're kind of like in a little bit of arena, and I really just, there was no place to go per se, and I wasn't dishing out the damage like I was later on when I fought them again. Like there's another point where you fight like 4 of these things almost like back to back, and at that point, the level is set up in a little bit easier way where you can do the thing that I like to do, where you hit them and then run away until they start backing away from you, and then you just kind of like cheese them. You go up and you like hit them, and then run away, and then it like doesn't really follow you, but kind of does, and doesn't know what to do because the pathfinding's all confused, and it's like, But here, I didn't die, but you fight that. You fight a lot more of these. You get a lot more introduction to like more monsters. And we get introduced to the puppets controlled by monsters. So there's like the old policeman puppets that were full of this place. Oh, the first level is the central station. So it had a lot of those the police puppets. And so now they're still around, but now they got like tentacle monsters in their face, and they're like slightly more difficult to destroy. We also have a lot more of these decay areas where you have to destroy the blob, and that's central station. We just kind of work our way through there without too much difficulty. We're getting some calls from the hotel, but thus far it seems like everyone's doing okay. Actually, I don't think we get a call. We also meet Weasel, like Little Weasel, which is just like a human person. So one of these kind of like mini bosses, human mini bosses that we don't need to fight necessarily. Like I think you could have just run past. It took me a couple tries. She's very agile. I think it's a she, or that or a little boy, just because of the voice. But very agile, very like quick. It reminds me a lot of like Little Sister Rabbit. Only you're like in a complete open room, and there's no Spectre to like help me out. So it made it a little difficult. I think it took me 3 tries to finally get her down. Eventually, I found that there was like there's like a couple little columns on the side, and so I just like brought her over there, and I just kind of circled attacked, and then until I built up like my super charge, and then once I got that down, and then it was around this time that I started kind of like realizing that this puppet on the string thing, or I finally got it leveled up all the way. And I'm glad I did, because it's got this attack where instead of like bringing a guy to you, which is useful sometimes, again, especially against like just random mobs, but it has this attack which lets you do, it grabs them and then you shoot at them and you hit them and then go up and then you do like a down attack, like your falling attack, and it really like messes dudes up. And I start using that thing heavily, and I'm like, yep, this is the best. Because I tried a few of these other arms, like the fire one and the landmine one, and I was just like, these suck. Like, there's no ins, outs, or buts about it. Like that, to me, that is the hands down best one. Mostly because, and again, it's my build. It's just like I just need to get in on these guys and do as much damage as humanly possible. And this just uses my weapon attack to really just like lay down the hurt train. Sometime around here, we also we get another riddle. Oh no, do we have another riddle yet? Sorry, I played a lot of this before I did this recording, just because circumstances allowed me such. So I'm trying to remember. I'm trying not to miss anything too key. But if I remember correctly, there's nothing too crazy in this area. Yeah, we stomped that guy out. We talked about that. We talked about that guy. Yeah. And then we get to the end of the station. There's another Trinity Gate that I open up later. And then we have one of our new friends here. Oh, no, not a new friend. Okay, I think I got it. So at this point, we get through the station. There's a save point, and then we pop back out to like the very beginning of the game again. Right, so there's like the tutorial area inside the central station, and then we're going, and then we get out of the station, and it's that big plaza again. But again, this time it's full of like kind of the monsters. It's got one of those big shambly guys that gives you like 1,000 ergo, and I remember that because they're so easy to kill. I was like, man, this is like, you could kind of like grind it out here. Like they give you so much, and they are so easy to kill, and like you just like heavy stomp them a few times, and every time they try to come at you, you can just like whack-a-mole them, and they just stun for a minute. So I've considered going back there and just like kill, 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 reset, kill, 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 reset. Because you can like really rack it up. Especially, we're getting to a point where it's like 10,000 plus ergo to like level up at all. But yeah, we're back in the city, and we cannot return to like chapter 1 anymore. So this is it. Like this is the city as the game progresses, which is an interesting way to handle this. And I kind of appreciate the fact that, because I was like, oh, maybe they'll let you kind of like do this like weird time travel thing where you can go and see what life was like. But not if you miss something, I guess it's gone forever. We got these dogs. These guys suck. I mean, they're not that bad because you can kill them really easily, but they do this disruption thing. And disruption, I find out later when I allow it to build up all the way because I'm an idiot. Disruption punishes you very hard because it kills you the second it builds up all the way. It's kind of like madness from Elden Ring, where once you get that madness stat all the way up, it is like you are done because you go mad and die. And there's these dogs that they just produce like the madness, so you gotta like kill them, and it's kind of rough. I'm not gonna lie. So one thing I forgot to mention here that I just did like a quick look back to make sure I was like, I thought more stuff happened here. They did. So that girl you rescued from the arcade, she asks you at some point to find like her compatriot, and he's here and he's corrupted, which means he's going to die soon or turn into a monster or whatever. And so this is one of our like choice situation points where we get to figure out what we want to do, right? So we talk to him. He essentially gives us a letter talking about like the mission or whatever, and he's like, hey, just let her know I died fighting. Don't tell her I turned into a monster. And so we can go back and talk to her before we leave, because the hotel's still open. At some point the hotel transforms as well, but we haven't gotten to that point just yet. That's where I was a little confused in my recollection. But we can go back and talk to her and give her the note, and then we tell her, obviously because I'm in the lie mode, that he died fighting monsters, and she's so grateful. She gives us a record. Yay! The records are the best. So that's good. The other thing of note here, should I had it? Oh yeah, is that we can find the original starting point, right, where we were sitting down when Sophia kind of like woke us up or whatever, called to us, however you want to look at it in that regard. And that's fun because we notice that like the back wall is breakable, so we break the back wall and there's a whole workshop back here. So like Geppetto was up to something here, and it's a little sketch, but we find some useless junk that I'm not ever going to use. But it's fun because there's like a whole workshop, and there's like an area where we can like level up and do all this stuff. It's not a Stargazer, so it's like all this stuff you can do with the Stargazer without actually being resurrected here or like resetting everything. So that's fun. That's nice. And that's behind the scorpion monster, because we can ignore the scorpion monster. We can just run past him, climb up a ladder, and like continue on with our day. But I don't want to. We also get a lot of these enemies that drop from the ceiling that we faced before, but now they also explode sometimes. So we gotta like hit them and then move out of the way, because if they explode, they hit us with a lot of decay and we take some damage. All right, so I think that's everything. I'm trying to recollect. That's everything. Okay, so then we're back in the plaza, and we work our way through here a bit, and we can hit some of our old like stomping grounds, like that point where I got stuck, where I had to point at the dirt to solve like the cryptic key or whatever. But we don't actually head straight back to the hotel at this point. We're still trying to like kind of figure out what's going on and move our way around. And we eventually get to Kraut City, or it's like destroyed Kraut City or like broken Kraut City or whatever, which is like a new level. And here the game really dives real hard into disruption. Like there's all sorts of crags that stick out of the ground that are yellow instead of blue. The blue does nothing. It's like background noise. But the yellow, they cause disruption until you destroy them. And sometimes there'll be like 2 or 3 in the area. And so you got to be like you either got to have a lot of built up like resistance, use some of those like ampophiles or whatever that give you resistance or like heal you, or you got to like just do what I did and just like hit and run real fast and destroy them as fast as you can, and then move back and wait a little bit, or use one of those amphiphiles, because they will. I got killed by this a couple times just by not paying attention. And there's various little tricky trap-like parts around here where you got like fucking stalagmites or whatever, and then we got these dogs, and it's a lot of assholery. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not super fun, but we're able to muddle my way through, and we start reading some documents around here that start talking about the tower, the central tower where like the alchemists are, or where like some workers were that got into a fight with the alchemists. Anyway, there's some business. So clearly that's where we gotta go next. So clearly the game is linear, so that's where we're gonna go next. So we work our way through here, opening shortcuts and doing all the same kind of Soulsborne-y, Dark Souls style stuff. And we eventually find this tower, and before we get there, there's like a mini boss of sorts. It's just like a big hulky kind of mutant creature thing, right? And it's all right. It's slow. I hit it real hard, and it died pretty quick, so I wasn't too concerned about that. But then we get to the tower, and the tower I absolutely hate, because there is a new enemy who is my new favorite enemy. It's like trench coat wearing asshole guy. They're big. They don't stagger like at all. And there's only one way to like stun them, and that's to hit them from behind where their little like venom juice is located. But I didn't realize that's the way to stagger them until like multiple levels later. When I found one just kneeled over a carcass, and I walked up and tried to backstab him, but there was no backstabbing option, and then I hit that, and that stunned him, or made it possible for me to stun him, and then I was able to stun and do like a fatale attack. So I hate these guys. And it's not just the fact that you can't stun them, which is like my whole thing, right? It's just hit dudes so hard that they stagger, and then I start doing fatal attacks, and then I do like puppet attacks and everything. It's that you're in these small enclosed rooms, and they do this awful charge attack where they like take their sword and they go straight at you, and they fly at you like a Goku punch kind of situation. And after that, they do like a spin, which you can dodge, and then they do a spin attack, and then sometimes they do like another attack after that, and it's like, oh my gosh. So they're just annoying, because you hit them. I hit them a bunch of times, or I hit them, and then they swing, and I gotta dodge, and I hit them again, and then they like dodge, and then I dodge back because I didn't dodge fast enough, so I need to heal, and then they do this like charge attack, and then I dodge out of that way, and I try to get a shot in, and then they do like a spin attack, but if I dodge both of those stupid attacks, which is two different dodges usually, and again, I'm in like a tiny room, and they're like doing these like swings, and when I say them, it's like, okay, so I meet the first one, I killed it wasn't that difficult. And then there's like another one, and while I'm trying to fight that one, another one comes down the stairs, and then there's like another one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And then there's some of these machine gun assholes around here too, and so then they're firing, and I'm like, God, I hate this so much. Like, this is not enjoyable. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck them. So I just run as fast as I possibly can, all the way to the top where I can. I like fall down this area, and I find this treasure chest with one of these cryptic things in it, which I found out later opens up the Hermit's Cave, which is where Albedo's like not homie, but like his admirer is hanging out, in that place I left in the Barren Swamp right before the boss. So that's good. I get around to that later. Because as of this point, or slightly before this, there's like another earthquake, and we get like I haven't heard anything from the hotel, or we get like a message from Sophia, and she's like, we're in trouble, you need to help, please hurry, or something. It's around this part. It might be right after the boss, but I think it's right after the boss, actually, because I didn't try to teleport at this point, because I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And then there's the boss. And it's no Spectre boss, so I almost want to call it like a mini boss. But this whole area has like no boss. There's like the scorpion guy, right, who's clearly like a mini boss, and then there's this boss. It's like the Lady of Mourning or something, or like, I don't know, it's something weird. and we'll talk about her in a second. But she's got like the boss thing, and then after you beat her, like essentially the level's kind of over. Not really, because there's another boss. So there's technically 2 bosses in this area, but the City of Kraut, the boss is like the mourning lady, like mourning as in she's sad or whatever. Anyway, her, or the illusionary lady, it's something weird. Anyway, so you take I unlock, I like run to the top, I find this chest, I unlock like a shortcut back to the Stargazer, and then I head up this elevator, and there's like this mutant lady person standing there, and she's all right. Like, it took me a few tries to get her, but it was one of those bosses where it's like, this is a well-made boss. My style is not perfect for trying to deal with her, because she's very like fluid. It's very dancey. It's almost like the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. It's not that dancey and rhythmic, but it's kind of a similar, like, she's kind of slow, but then she does these like attacks that are like a dance, kind of like multiple attacks, and then at some point she'll like split into 2, which seems like a much more like terrible thing, but they're both like, they're like very chill bosses. Or she is, in that like she'll like come and do like a flurry of attacks, and as long as I can like dodge and block my way out of it and like step back, she'll just like hang out for a few minutes. Like, if I back away, if I try to like engage at that point, she'll fight back, but if I pull back to like the other side of the room, and there's no place to hide, it's just like a circular room, then I can heal, or I can use grindstones, I can do whatever. And she just kind of leaves me alone for a minute before she'll come in with like another kind of dancey charge attack. And then when there's 2 of them, I mean, I fought this boss like 5 or 6 times. I think there was one time I had to deal with both of them at the same time. And it was a situation where I had like my super attack charged up, so I was like, fuck it. So I just used that and hit them both. Stunned them both a little bit. So in between, I was able to utilize the puppet string pretty well, because they would keep, she would give me like the space, and it just took like, I was kind of like trying to rush it. I can't remember, I was playing it either in the morning right before the kids got up, or at night, and I was like wanted to go to bed. I think it was in the morning, and I was just trying to like, okay. So, and that's usually the times when I'd struggle with some of these bosses more so than others, because I'm just trying to like go quick instead of just like, I'm going to ease into this, I'm going to like use my power-ups and really get this thing done. But I said 5 or 6 times, I think. That's what it took me. Finally, I get her down, and that's when we exit, and then we get a message from like Sophia. It's like, please hurry, the hotel's under attack, and they're after Geppetto, and you have to hurry. Oh no! And then we kind of head through. This is where we head through like the middle part. I'm pretty sure that I was mentioning before, where we can see it's like it pops us out like pretty close to the entrance of Kraut. The Hotel Kraut, and we just kind of work our way a little bit, and then we're like right back at like where the Puppet Master was at before, and we killed him. Where that the guy was selling us stuff, where the first boss, not the Puppet Master, like the ringleader. Oh, before we talk about the second fight with the ringleader, or the ringmaster, there's something I totally forgot. At some point, you go back, and the old lady who owns the hotel, she's doing great. She's loving life. She's feeling great. And she requests that she requests a piano, like little solo from you. And the whole time during the game, she has a piano by her. I'd go and like plink away at it, and you'd play like something. But this time, when you go to play the piano, you play like a full legit. There's like a whole cutscene and like a song, and like the song's pretty good. And it's like, oh, okay. And there's some notes and stuff and previously that kind of hinted at like, hey, there's occasionally there'd be a puppet that could like perform, and it was considered like this great artistic thing and amazing that the puppet could be like creative and be able to play piano like that. So that happens. So then we get to the ringleader, and I kind of just brute force my way through this. It's like a brute force attack. Because I just roll in there, and he hit me a bunch, but I had enough like life replenish, I had enough pulse charges, and I did so much damage that like the one similar attack he had is the thing where he like falls over, and I would just like decimate him, and then had like a power attack and some string attacks, and he was no trouble at all. We get to the other side. We can't teleport at all from Stargazers, and there's a Stargazer like right outside the hotel, and I was like, bro, there's gonna be a boss fight in there. And so you roll in there, and Sophia's just standing there by herself. The whole place was like ruined. There's a sign that says liar or something like that on the top, as soon as you walk in, and you talk to Sophia, and she explains how like all our friends, like the albedo and the cat and the fox and the Rabbit Brotherhood, like stormed the place, and like everyone locked themselves up in Geppetto's office upstairs, and they just wanted Geppetto, so they jacked the place up, and then Geppetto gave himself up to protect everybody. Noble sacrifice. And Sophia's meanwhile is just hanging out here, and everyone else is locked in his room upstairs. And so already you're like, that's interesting. This woman has already confessed that she can like manifest in other places using ergo or whatever. So she's probably not here. And not to spoil too much, but yes, she is not here. In fact, this is just like one of her manifestations or whatever. So where is she at? We'll find out soon enough. So we get upstairs, we rescue everybody. At this point, I'm able to kind of follow through some of the side quests with people, specifically the Venigni and his puppet. We get a little bit more of their story. We learn that Venigni's... Oh, we also had like a Riddler call from that payphone I kept going back to at the beginning of the game that was just given like, you couldn't answer it or do anything. You go there and you talk to him, and so you get another call from that guy, and that gives you another Trinity key, which opens up the previous Trinity door. And the riddle was like, what's blue that you use to give you more levels or something? It's very obviously ergo. So everyone's kind of bummed out, and you talk to the old lady, and you talk to Venigni, and you find out that like, I almost feel like the gold ergo thingy that we needed, even Venigni, like when we take it back to him, he like converts it into something. It's like we didn't really use it, or we used it later on. It just doesn't like come up again as like, oh hey, we're using it. It's just like now that we have it, we can use the submarine that gets us to the Alchemist Island or whatever. But to get to the submarine, we have to go through like the Temizizin ruins, which is where our friend at the gate said he was going to head to eventually to fall off to the path of Albedo. After he opens up that Hermit Gate's place. Oh yeah, so the Hermit Gate. So we end up getting that cryptic message. It tells us about the gate from Venigni. Venigni also tells us that his parents were killed in front of him by the Riddle Master, by Archuleta or whatever. And so that guy's a mass murdering asshole. And so, because someone else tells us that he like tricked people, and he tricked Mary. That's right. Who's like that warrior lady whose friend got turned into a mutant. He tricked her into going to like her space. So he's kind of an a-hole. So then we head to the Hermit's Cave. So we head back. The door like just opens now, and the guy's like, I figured out how to open the door. Cool. So I'll see you at the ruins or something. Bye. And you're like, bye. And then we go through here, and it's just kind of like it gets us 2 quartz. There's like a boss fight at the end that was super easy because there's no new enemies here. There's just, even the boss is just kind of like it's like a guy we've already fought in before, and he's not that difficult, and he's literally just sitting in the middle of the room being sad. And we learned from reading stuff scrawled on the walls and some notes, it seems like it's Mordero, who's the friend of Albedo, who was like the journalist guy, like the real Albedo, not the false Albedo. And so, who would like attack the hotel. So it seems like he transformed into this monster here because he was like here with some other people, and they like escaped the Alchemist Island. And he names, who does he name? He names Sophia as someone who's like who was in the island with him, right? So he knew her. And then it's a little area, you get some quartzes, get some other random junk, and it's a nice little side area. We kill him. That's what I figured. It's Madero, the guy. It's just kind of like a sad story. The recantings of his like tragedy on the scroll on the door, and yeah, that's that. So now it's time to play the special song that we learned from the old lady on the piano, which opens up a secret passage and takes us into the Temizizin ruins. So the Temizizin ruins. This is pretty straightforward and simple area. There's just like a little meandering about. There's some corpse fellas hanging out, and there's this big strong mother effer who gives us a sweet ass ring that increases our physical defense, which I think, or not a ring, I'm sorry. Amulet? Whatever the fuck they're called in this game. So I get this sweet ass ring, and it increases our physical defense, which I'm pretty sure I used if not the entire rest of the game. It was so good. Like there was a significant difference, unlike a lot of this stuff. And around this point, I'm really kind of locking in my amulet usage. Like I'm back to, when I'm not fighting bosses, I usually have the health regeneration one. I also got this defense one, and then I'm usually using stamina recovery as well, like quick stamina recovery. And then there's another one I get, or I think I already got it from the Fox, if I remember correctly, that gives me like extra HP, stamina, and puppet string stuff. So that's what I'm kind of rolling with. When I get to bosses, I'll like mix it up a little bit, just depending on like the type of boss there. I don't remember exactly what I did. It might come across in some of these videos, but I chop these up pretty like haphazardly because whatever. If this was my job, I would care a lot more, but this is just something fun I do essentially for myself and like the 10 to 50 people that watch this. It's probably more like the 2 to 10 people who aren't bots who see these videos. Jeez. Anyway, I appreciate all of you. Anyway, what are we doing here? Oh yeah, so we kill that guy, and then we kill some more dumbasses, and then we get to my favorite thing in the whole world, the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. They're back! So they're back because the alchemists, I'm assuming, promised them that they would resurrect Big Brother if they kidnapped Geppetto, Eel. So, so we roll in there and we fight all 3 of them. Thank God, praise the Lord that there's a specter here. This battle is a little tricky, only because again, my setup is like one-on-one, big slow monsters. I completely dominate. Usually in monsters like that, I'm beating first, second try, to be completely honest. Just like absolutely demolishing them. So when we have like a little quicker characters that are, I have to like move around a little bit more. It takes a few more tries. Nothing in this game was hard. I've already beaten it at this point. Because I'm able to knock it out without recording a lot of these videos. So this is going to be, the rest of this is going to be a lot of memory. Off the cuff kind of stuff. And then I'll maybe add like a little addendum at the end because I'll watch through the videos and see if there's anything I really missed out on. But these guys still only took me like, I want to say like 5 tries max. The big deal is the first try, I just like hammer down first guy, hammer down the second guy, and then that's when the Big Brother appears. And it was like, ruh-roh. And so I was like, well, if I just kill the Big Brother, the whole battle will be over, right? Not untrue. So I blew all my load, tried to kill, and I did. I killed the Big Brother, and the other 2 guys ended up killing me. So I was like, all right. I gotta kill these guys. I'm trying to remember. Because I think the Big Brother doesn't come till you kill 2 of them. I think he does come before then. I'm trying to remember exactly what triggered him. But definitely after you kill 2 of the guys, he pops in. So then I was like, all right, whatever. So then I'd kill the first 2, and then I'd be working on the 3rd dude, and the Spectre would be hanging out with the Big Brother. And I was just having some difficulty with that. And there was just kind of random difficulty. Like, I'd roll in there, and, like, I'd get... all 3 of them would jump me, and the Spectre would just be hanging out, and then that would be rough. So, but eventually, I got it to... I'd kill one of them, and then I'd get the next one down a lot, and then I'd start working on the other one, and the Spectre would go back and forth. Eventually, that one died, but then we killed that one pretty easily. So then it was just the 2 of us versus the Big Brother. But the Spectre was looking pretty rough, and he died about halfway through his life, and I was like, ruh-roh. But then I looked around the room, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. This arena is perfectly made for me because it's got like a bunch of dumb stuff just like lying around. So I pulled my circling shenanigans, which kind of nullify any difficulty in this game as far as I'm concerned. So I would just like charge attack, run around a circle, charge attack, run around in the circle, wait for him to do like his super move while like on the other side of this pillar, and I just stand there and watch him, and then I do like a charge attack, and then I do my super attack, and that was the end of that. Again, fuck those guys. I hate them. So once we take care of those motherfuckers, hold on, I'm driving. We proceed forward, and we run into... Yes, this is where we run into Albedo. And essentially he finally reveals that like, oh hey, I was the guy who... I was the friend of Albedo, who was the brother of Eugenie, who's the lady who fixes my... who does my like weapon upgrades, who's bless her heart forever. She I killed him because I was jealous, if I remember correctly, and I'm just kind of an asshole. But, you know, I feel bad about it, so you should just let me be. But if you kill me, I understand. And I'm like, I think I'm going to kill him. That's what a human would do, right? That's what we're going for. Like, fuck this guy. And I was like, well, no more boss weapons for me, which I haven't really used or gotten. And there's like, my talismans or amulets already locked in. So I was like, fuck this guy. So like, let's fight. And he's like, I'm sad. And then I hit him once and he died. And I was like, well, that was anticlimactic. So he drops some stuff. And it tells us more of the story. Albedo, you know, he pretended to be this guy. Him and Eugenie are from like a faraway land, right? They're kind of Asian-y, even though everyone's kind of Asian-y because it's a Korean game. But they're like actually supposed to be like not from Italy, essentially. And she was a princess of some sort or some sort of royalty, it seems. So we go back. We read the letter. There's like I think what he dropped was like a cryptic thing. So we have Vanini fix that problem for us. And then we learn all this stuff. And then we go talk to Eugenie and we can decide what we're going to do about all this information. And of course I lie, right? So my heart swells with great life. But she seems contented. Like, you know, she doesn't know really what happened to her brother. Oh, wait, did I tell her that it was her brother? I may have told her that it was her brother, but that he died like off screen, protecting her and protecting everybody instead of being backstabbed by some asshole. Fun news at this point is I was like, well, okay, whatever. Our dog boy who was hanging out in front of the hermit cave, he now pops back up. He's in Albedo's space, and he does exactly the same thing Albedo was doing. So cool. So we head back. We get in our submarine and we take a trip out to the Alchemist's Landing. It was around this time as well, if I remember correctly, that I maxed out my humanity, essentially. Oh, it might have been later, actually. No, I think it was around this point. I'm trying to remember. There's like one more crazy thing that happens that like proves that you have earned the best ending, quote unquote. But I think I got it. God, I'm trying to remember. Anyway, at some point around here, this island, the Alchemist like refuge, is the last area. Okay. And somewhere around here, from petting the cat and giving kisses to the cat and hugging the cat, I'm assuming it's just all cat related, and doing everything else, I was able to go to my painting, and my nose was fully grown from all my lies in my humanity, and so I was able to pluck off the nose, and it became a staff. It became like the Golden Liar staff or whatever, the Staff of Lies or something. It was pretty good. I actually used it a decent amount. I maxed it all the way out at the weapon shop. And it wasn't like, I was so used to the spear, and the spear I think was better, but I'd go back and forth. I actually had them both equipped. And the spear does, or the spear is more like a heavy axe, where it does like big swinging motions and like heavy attacks. Like it's like a traditional like greatsword, if you will, in a lot of these games, with a little bit of extra range. While the staff is short range, but it also does a decent amount of damage, and it's quick. So it's like kind of an opposite thing. But its combos were like much more intense, because it would be like a spinning staff. So for like every attack, you got 2 attacks. And so I was practicing around on the dummy with it, and when I did my like super attack with the staff, it did almost twice as much damage to the training dummy than it did the spear like charge attack. And I was like, oh, this is good information to have. And it was good information to have because it saved my ass against the last boss. But I used that for a little bit, but I eventually went back to the spear because the spear's, you know, it's what I'm used to, and the damage differential was pretty negligible, to be completely honest. Like I feel like the staff did a little bit more damage, but the spear gave me more range, which I was used to with like the charge attacks and kind of my general consensus. But if I was to play this again, for like the eventual, there's DLC already announced that's coming out. I guess I'm gonna have to play through this game again. I usually like when I play games, I like pull them over from my server, I install them, I play them, and then I delete them. So I'm gonna have to like rebeat the game at some point, which is a lot of work. I should have just kept the save, because I don't think I kept the save file. Oh well, c'est la vie. What are you gonna do? I might just cheat, to be completely honest, to get through the main game, and then hit New Game Plus, and then we'll just uncheat it, right? Just cheat engine it up, just to kind of cruise my way through there. We'll see. We'll see what I do. but I enjoy it, so I'm definitely gonna check out the DLC and the most likely sequel at some point. This game sounds like it was pretty successful for NeoWiz, is the company, I think. Anyway, totally off topic. So we bump into Sophia, but again, it's not real Sophia. It's like astral projection Sophia, and she reveals that her actual body is here, and she's so happy that I'm here, and that there's some stories to be garnered along the shore, because the shore is so full of Ergo, and there's like an Ergo storm with like blue, and there's this big, like a big kind of dune desert beach area that we climb up, and there's huge Ergo stones everywhere. And we trek up the beach, and we see this story unfold. And the story is the story of the friendship between Carlo and Romeo. Now, if you remember, Romeo is the king of puppets. And who's Carlo, you may ask? Carlo, if I haven't mentioned this before, is the son of Geppetto. And we don't get the full story here, but we understand that Romeo and Carlo were friends. We get that kind of information from the robot translator device that Romeo had, that Venini fixed for us. Oh, no, yeah, there was like a combination of those things of some sort. And so we learned that Romeo and Carlo were like super best friends, but then something happened to Carlo. And then we kind of see some of that play out in the field here about like, oh, I don't have a father, a son, something, something. It's good stuff. At some point I thought it was the fox and the cat story. But I think it's Carlo and Romeo. But we cruise in here. Our first boss fight is after we scale this wall. So there's a couple of these like asshole scorpion monsters, and then there's like 6 guys shooting bullets at us. And so I might have killed both scorpion monsters. I think I just killed one on one side and then ran up the stairs, killed all the bullet monsters, and then just kind of cruised into this boss. This boss is pretty simple. He's like the Yorm giant, where at first it's like, God, this guy's big and he takes a lot of damage. But his trick is just you knock his knee out, and then you do like a super attack on him, and it does like half his life. And it's like, oh, okay. Because I was hitting with my spear and stuff, and it was doing nothing. And I was like, fuck, this has got to be some sort of like gimmicky boss. And then he gives us this stone of the alchemist, or the key of the alchemist, so that we can use all the alchemist bullshit in their temple here. Then we just get to like a very long kind of like a lot of puzzles, a lot of bad guys, kind of a lot of repeat customers. A lot of the bosses from days gone by are now just like regular enemies. Like we run into a bunch more of these, like not a bunch, like 2 or 3 more of these scorpion guys, some more of these big hulking carcasses. We run into like Puppet Friend, like the creepy puppet from the puppet graveyard dumpster place. The one that like bounces around. We run into, I don't think we run into another clown again. But yeah, but a lot of these like mini boss type characters we bump into again, and then we work our way up and up and up, and we eventually bump into Black Cat, and Black Cat's gone blind from the disease, and he's like very sad, and he's like, I'm supposed to stop you, but I don't know if I really have the energy in it for me, and like honestly, you're the only person who's ever been nice to me, so like I'd rather not. But here's the deal: if you give me some gold coin, fruit, or whatever, we'll just call it even, and you can move on with our day. And I was like, for sure, bro. So here you go. So you could probably fight this guy. I really had no interest in it whatsoever. Like they're kind of assholes, but they're like the assholery is understandable in some level, and it's just like whatever. So I gave that to him. He was super thankful. He gave me some more tchotchkes, like dress-up doll stuff, that I was like, whatever. And then we moved on our way. He also apologized for kidnapping Geppetto because the alchemist lied to them as well. Eventually, after climbing and moving around and going through this huge, ridiculous tower, we end up finding Sophia. And she looks like a hot mess. Like she's like there's like Ergo goo everywhere around her, or like something, and she just is like barely holding on to like existence. And you go talk to her, and she's like, you finally found me. And then you get a choice: you can like release her, or you can not release her. So of course I'm gonna like kill her to release her, right? And once you do, if you're on like the humanity path and not the puppet path, then your hair turns white. So now, not only is your hair grown, which is a thing puppets can't do, right, showing your humanity and that you're actually human, but then now your hair changes color, changes to white. So now you have beautiful, and it's so beautiful and so beautifully Korean that I'm like, all right, I'm done with this hat I've been wearing, this Korean soldier hat I've been wearing time. I want to see this beautiful locks of hair. So we switched over that. But rest in peace, Sophia. Sad times. We work our way up a little bit more. I feel like I'm missing a boss. I'm trying to remember. Da, 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 da. At some point around here, I'm almost positive there's a boss. I'm like forgetting. Oh yeah, there is. Oh okay. Yeah. So on our way up, I think before we get to definitely before we get to Sophia, we fight that lightning chick that killed the wrestler guy. It's like Lucia or something like that. She's a real asshole. But not that hard. I beat her on my second or third try. So she's 2 phases. At this point, this 2-phase thing is almost... it's annoying. It's always annoying. 2 phases where the boss drastically changes is always annoying. I never, in any of these games, virtually any games, I don't enjoy it. It's like, let me just fight the boss. just have it do its due. I don't mind if it changes tactics a little way, but this whole like I'm starting all over. You're starting all over again with the second boss. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. Like again, I don't mind the phase issue. Like I play a lot of MMORPGs, and then like you have like I can't remember what her name is, Ronnie's like mom boss from Elden Ring, where she like kind of changes. But usually like the first phase is like just kind of like a joke phase, or like, and the second phase, you know, and it's like once or twice, like the one in Dark Souls 3 that everyone loves, with the brothers who are like humping or whatever. Like that's okay too. I don't mind that so much. Because again, the first phase is just kind of like super easy and quick. This is like, she's wearing a lot of armor, and it wasn't hard to get through that phase, but it's just like, it just became annoying. Like this was not the most egregious at all of these kind of like phase changes. But it just, at this point I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm just going to expect this every time now. So in her second phase, first thing she does is this super light. She like jumps in the air, summons all this lightning, and shoots a bunch of lightning bolts at you. And I got wrecked. Killed my Spectre, all this bullshit. And I was like, all right, I got to rethink this. And then I was like, well, you know, this game is pretty simple and straightforward. Let's just try blocking it. Like, I have thus far not found anything to be too like technically like I gotta spend a lot of hours like planning out how I'm gonna do this, and I gotta go back and like rearrange, or I gotta like really evaluate how I'm like fighting these bosses or whatever. No, it's just like, all right, let me try. I can block most things, so let's just block that. So I did, and you could block the lightning, and then it was super easy. In fact, when you block the lightning, it reflects it back to her, so it did a decent amount of damage to her before we even started the fight. And I think it might have been the third, but it didn't take that long to beat this. Someone on Reddit was like, I spent 6 hours trying to fight this person, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing, man. Like, like I am not an expert game player. I play maybe an hour a day if I can. Like I played a lot of games back in the day, but I would not consider. I've never done any challenge rounds or anything. I didn't even look at, I don't look up guides for most of this stuff at this point, because it's just like, the games are made for you to figure them out. Like Michael Zaki, the creator of all the Dark Souls and all that stuff, he literally came out and was like, we make these games for people who have no information, but if you want to use a guide, high fives all around. We don't care. But the battles are intuitive, and I feel like NeoWiz here, these battles are all intuitive too. It's just like, okay, so that didn't work. How is this person killing me? They're killing me with this? All right, let's try something different. The only exception is the last boss here. I lied. I did look up a guide on that, because I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. And then the guy said something, and to use something I'd never even considered using this entire game, and I was like, that's on me. We'll get there. All right, so yeah, when she goes down, and she's also... Oh, then the second phase, she takes off her face mask, and she's like a woman, I guess. Anyway, so... we take care of that. We rescue Sophia. We go upstairs to the prison. We rescue Geppetto, who says he's going to meet with me after we take care of Jason Voorhees, or whatever his name is. Simon Magus, I think, actually is what his name is, the alchemist. We go up there. We find some letters from him just talking about how he betrayed people, and how he wanted to become like God, and how he gained possession of God by using like the arm of God and all this crazy bullshit nonsense. We go see him, and he's all mutated now. He's like a big kind of hunchback for his first phase. And that was pretty straightforward. Like I'm pretty sure I killed this guy on my first try. Like no joke. Like I just rolled in there and was like, we'll see. He's big. He's lumbering. I had a Spectre. All my favorite things. So I just I worked him over real good. And then his second phase is pretty spectacular in that he grows like an arm out of his body, and it goes up, and there's an arm from heaven that comes down, and they like reach out and touch each other. And then he starts moving a bit quicker, but still pretty slow, and doing like more stuff. But I was still able. I think the Spectre died. He might not have, but we beat the shit out of him. And so that was that. And he's like, oh, but you have a choice here. Oh, you had a choice before you even fought him. And the choice is really just like, do you lie to him or not lie to him about what happened to Sophia? And so I told him I killed her, and he was like, I see. I respect your decision. That might have been right after we fought him, actually, to be completely honest. So that was a funny thing. But yeah, super easy. Unlike the actual final boss. And granted, if you're in the puppet thingy or whatever, I don't think you even get an option here. So after you beat him, you go down. There's the thing in the center. You know, you've won. You defeated all the alchemists. Their plans were ruined. You stopped the puppet frenzy. I don't think it really dealt with the petrification curse, to be completely honest. I kind of gets like washed under the table at some point. But we head on down, and we find Geppetto just hanging out with like a treasure chest. And he goes in this whole sob story about how he created you so that he could help you become human, so that he could take your like clockwork heart and put it in the dead body of his son, or like a puppet, another puppet that's supposed to be his son Carlo, who died, which is the whole impetus for this whole thing. We also learn along the way that Geppetto is the one who created the puppet frenzy to fight the alchemists, to create more ergo so that he could use that ergo to bring his son back to life. So a lot of this stuff was kind of like perpetuated. Like the alchemists have their own thing and they're kind of assholes, but Geppetto is he's not the master behind the scene, but he like took advantage of the situation for his own ends, right? To get what he wanted. And that caused a lot of problems as well. It doesn't seem like it had anything to do with the petrification curse. That was kind of a separate thing. So but Geppetto's the cause of a lot of problems. Just so you can get his son back. So then you get a choice here. So the choice depends. So I got the choice because I'm superhuman or whatever. And apparently there's 3 endings. I had to look this up because I got like the ending I was going for, is pretty sure. But again, it's very much trying to ape a lot of the Dark Souls stuff where like the game ends and you're like, okay, I think that was right. Like there's not like a grand party and like it's not like a JRPG where it's like everyone goes home and we have these nice stories and it's like a huge epilogue wrap up. It's just like here's 2 short videos, the end. And so essentially at this point we can choose to give our heart over to Geppetto so we can raise his son back up, or we can choose to say fuck that guy. So of course I chose fuck that guy. I'm human. I'm not going to just die so that your dead son can come back to life in some creepy Frankenstein experiment. And Geppetto was super upset about that. So then he summons the nameless puppet, which is the puppet I think he was going to push his son's soul into or something. I don't know. I don't know why the main character is not that person, but whatever. But yeah, there you go. I guess whatever. So at this point, this is the last boss. This guy is fast. He's got a lot of combo attacks. He's everything I am not built to defeat. So I fought against him a couple times. I got into a second phase both times. But I was just having a real struggle with that next phase. Like all my tactics, even like switching it up a little bit with some more blocks and rebuttals and stuff, it's just not like really working. But I was getting better. But I still felt like, okay, I don't want to waste a lot of time in this. So I'm just going to look around because it's like this last boss, it's time to move on with my life. I've put like 30 hours into this game already. Like I don't need to be like hammering my face against this thing for another like several hours. So I just looked up, I went to like Reddit and was like, hey, what's some good advice on this motherfucker? And someone's like, use throwable items because he's very weak against stun. And I was like, the fuck's a throwable item? So I opened my inventory and I was like, oh, that's what all this bullshit I keep picking up that I don't use is. I remember now. After 30 hours, I remember. The game even told me at some point, like, hey, you can throw this shit. And I was like, fuck you. I'm not going to throw. What is the point of this? And I'm like, oh, this is so useful. So I redid my whole inventory to be essentially all throwable items. And there's one, like, a shot put, which stuns people. And this guy, like, will get stunned immediately with it. And then it stays stunned. And it is like, oh, this motherfucker is super easy to kill. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I got him down to his first phase. I mean, the first phase is not hard. So I got him through his first phase pretty quick. Like, I think I used, like, maybe one Eustace flask or whatever. That was crazy. I still took my gas instead of my brake. Clearly distracted. Distracted driving, fellas. Be careful out there. I almost ran into a car, but I stopped myself. Thank you, Lord. Okay. Let's wrap this up into my final thoughts later, because I just got to work. So, yeah, so I got like I said, this is like my third try, I think, or maybe fourth try. Because sometimes I go in there and I have like a quick death because I just wasn't paying attention, or like a kid screams and so I have to hop up and go do something. But like 3, I would say about 3. So really not that complicated. So I got it because my setup is does so much damage so fast that like that, especially when I have everything like ready to go. So I get in there, I string him, I do like a charge attack, and then I use my super charge attack, and then I charge that up. I mean, and by that, and then he's stunned, and then I do a fatal attack. I mean, that kills like the first phase. On almost every single one of these guys, I can get through the first phase. Like, I just like shred. I'm literally just like shredding life. But then that second phase, I have to like recharge everything. And so when they're fast, I don't have time to like back up and like shoot myself with a bunch of like fucking heroin needles so I can charge up all my super stuff again to like reload. But with this guy, you can. Because I literally just like switched to, I just like threw a shot put at him and it stunned him like immediately. And then I like used all my stuff and then hit him. And then he started coming at me, but I was able to do my super thing and I shredded his life to like 1/3. And then I hit him with another shot put, and then I started just wailing on him. And then I hit him with like some of these other throwables, like the lightning throwables. And then I think I finished him with like another shot put. I think he can carry 3. I can't remember. But I was using the staff at some point because my staff like ran out of durability, and so the spear, so I switched over to the staff. And the staff, that's what I think I used in the second phase. I think the first phase I burned through the durability because he blocked something, or I can't remember what happened. But I just remember at some point I was like, oh fuck. So it's faster. I just switched over to the staff, and then the staff like wrecked him. And then I just finished him off with like consumables. Like I just threw some stuff at him, and then I think I hit him one more time, and then he died like a simple attack. It was closer than I make it sound. But at the same time, it wasn't that hard. And if I had lost that battle, it would have sucked, because then I would have to have gone and grinded for consumables. But I beat him. So not that hard, fellas. You got it. I believe in you if you're playing this game. And then we get a cutscene where it doesn't matter. We're going to die anyway. The Nameless Puppet's going to use his spear sword attack and just impale us. But then Geppetto sacrifices himself for us to protect us. And then we kill the Nameless Puppet using like our original fist, the supercharged power fist that I never used this game at all. But I guess we equipped it just for this cutscene. So kill that guy, and then Geppetto, depending. So this is part of the ending. So if you chose like the halfway point instead of the full point of becoming human, then Geppetto says, he's like, fuck you, and then dies. I didn't get this. So for me, he was like, you really were my son all along, or I considered you a son, or he didn't say it like that. He says it much more poetic. He's like, I'm sorry I let you down, my son. Something like that. Something very touching. And then we see the main character kind of wander over to a puppet, Sophia. Oh, because Sophia gave us like her life essence, and that's what turned her hair white, right? And so then you see the main character give the life essence back to the puppet Sophia, which brings her back to life, and then he collapses in her arms, and she says like thank you or whatever. And that's the end of the game. That's the ending I got. So there are other endings. One of the middle ending doesn't include that part where you bring back Sophia, and then the bad ending, or the quote unquote bad ending, is where you give your heart, and then they bring back Carlo, but then they need more ergo, so then they go back to the hotel and kill everybody and steal their ergo, because ergo's like life essence, essentially hardened life essence because of the petrification curse. So maybe it was caused by Geppetto, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, so, and then they wander off, and then you get your traditional like, hey, would you like to start a New Game Plus, or you just want to keep playing? And so if you keep playing if you go back with the bad ending, my understanding is that everyone's puppets now because they all got killed, right? So cool. I go back, you read like there was a letter from like the old lady. She eventually died and everyone's sad. And then her puppet's like, I'm going to reset my memory. So I just don't remember her because it's too hard to feel this emotions. And she's so grateful for the life you gave her, for the extra life and making it pleasant and all this stuff. There's a letter from Sophia, and she's so grateful that you saved her and brought her back to life. And she's excited to, meet with you again someday. And then I read somewhere that you can get a letter from Geppetto, but I don't know. That might be a New Game Plus thing or something. But you just talk to everybody, and everyone's like, oh, we did it. We saved everybody, and Krat will restore, and all this stuff. And then we do the credits. Okay, so in the post-credit scenes, we see Giorgio, who's the guy who's like, oh, I need gold coin fruit. And he's talking to somebody, and he's fine. He's totally fine. And he's like, oh, we have someone else joining the scene or whatever. And like the experiment in Krat went very well, and we learned so much. And I'm off to like find like the next subject or this next experiment, this girl named Dorothy. And then we see a girl with red ruby shoes walking along a rooftop, and then she clicks her heels like 3 times and it goes black. All right, so that's like obviously their sequel they're planning on making is going to be focused on her somehow. But yeah, that's the game. So it's great. So I'm going to pause it here, and then after work I will talk about my final thoughts. But at this point, excellent ending, everything good. All right, so what are my final thoughts about this one? I really enjoyed Lies of P. It reminds me a lot of Mortal Shell. Not that these two are similar, but that I feel like at a lot of these, what people like to call the Soulsborne games, it like captures the essence of the gameplay the best. And it also somewhat captures the feel, like the vibe that is in there. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessary, but if we're going to break it down to just the gameplay, right? Just kind of like what makes these games what they are, right? And you have another crab story coming out. People are like, oh, I haven't played it yet, but people are like, oh, it's a Soulsborne, but it's like fun and fish and stuff. And it's like that, right? Like it's a Soulsborne quote unquote game because it captures the essence of like going on an adventure where you role play. You're like, you have a character you develop and there's lots of options. And it's got kind of like this loose, it's got like a narrative, but the point of the thing is that you solve these like puzzles, these combat puzzles on the way, and the combat puzzles train you so that when you reach the gate, which is the boss at the end, that you have the key to get through the gate, right? It's everything in like the little arenas that kind of leads up to the boss teaches you how to defeat the boss. If there's like new things going on, if there's new mechanisms, if there's like an attack, if there's different ways to approach a situation, all that stuff is like slowly taught to you as you progress along. You can also just level up past a lot of this stuff and just power through things through grinding, right? So that's like the role-playing aspect. And I feel like Lies of P, if Lies of P was just like Bloodborne 2 or something, it would not be too far off, right? Because it plays more similar to that with like the life regeneration and it's kind of quicker. It's like you want to be aggressive more often than not. While Mortal Shell felt more like an original Dark Souls game where it's slow, you want to be very like precise, you want to be patient. Like in Bloodborne, it often pays to be a little greedy. Well, in Dark Souls, it almost never pays to be greedy. Like you'll be punished very harshly. But in Bloodborne, there's like some forgiveness in that, like when you're doing damage, you're healing, and so that's like the comparison with Lies of P. So when it comes to gameplay, it feels like it just slots into this genre very easily. Like it's made with a lot of confidence. There's nothing like really, there's nothing dramatic, right? Like I would say the hardening thing in Mortal Shell is like a kind of like a very experimental thing to throw in there. That's vastly different. While with Lies of P, you do have your like arm stuff, but essentially that's just magic, right? It's just done through the arm, and there's different arms. You can equip 2 arms at the same time at some point, and like one of them is literally just like fire, right? So essentially, it's like you have your magic, which the string thing I loved, and then you have your weapon, right? You can't do too much with that because it's one-handed. It's not like you can double wield and stuff like that. So it's like it's like a toned down kind of simplified, and it relates more to the Bloodborne, right? Because you can dual wield that, like you can hold a weapon in 2 hands, but that's not dual wield. You can 2-hand a weapon. I don't think you can dual wield from what I remember, but you have like the gun, right, which is kind of like part of the magic because it like stuns people, or like you can get some shots off, and like it's not super powerful, but if used correctly, if used in like the optimal way, it can really like change the course of battle. Like in some of those boss battles, like shooting somebody at exactly the correct moment is like game changing in how you defeat bosses. I was never that good at it. I'm a little slow in the head, I guess. But some of those quick reactions, I felt like Lies of P was much more forgiving in that regard too, with like the blocking and the timing of the block. I felt like when I was trying to parry block versus just like hold the block button, that I was a lot more successful here. Anyway, so that's the mechanic. So if you have played any of the FromSoft, like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne games, you will slot very easily into this. Like Code Vein, the Surge is a little different, but like the old Lords of the Fallen, I haven't played the new one yet. But any games in this kind of style, even like Mortal Shell to some degree, and I would say it's smoother than a lot of these games, and it's hard to say that it's easier because people are become accustomed to different things at different paces. But for me, I felt like it was simpler. Like the boss battles weren't as complex, and there was like more forgiveness. And maybe it's just the build I had was very good, and that I was I've been doing this a long time, so I just have more preternatural skills. Preternatural, not preternatural, preemptive skills when it comes to playing some of these. But it was good. And then when we're talking about the atmosphere is good. I'm a fan of Pinocchio as Sicilian. I'm partial to most things that are Italian adjacent in general. So it's good. And I feel like they did a good job of kind of interpreting the story while keeping a lot of the elements, while like bringing them to like kind of like not a new interpretation, but it's like here's like the story of Pinocchio, like the original story, not the Disney story. And then how do we take that and form like a narrative while keeping a lot of like the characters somewhat similar, almost like an alternate dimension version of the story. And I feel like they really kind of nailed it out, and it was really good. All the characters were interesting. They all had personalities. The limited interactions with NPCs was good. When I say limited, I mean it's a role-playing game where like you talk to some of these people like sometimes 2 or 3 times to complete like their story, to get their like CDs or their records, so get your humanity up or whatever. And that's about it. And so but in those like few moments of interaction, the way the game plays, like NeoWiz, the company that makes these games, did a fantastic job of like bringing it all together. So like I always felt fully immersed. Nothing was in my face. I didn't use a guide again, except for I looked up a strategy for the final boss, and then I read a little bit after the first boss, or during the first boss while I was playing him, because I felt like I was missing a mechanic in the game. And so I didn't look up a guide per se. I just looked up like, okay, so what does shit do in this game? And that's kind of essentially what I did at the end too, was like, I feel like I'm missing something. And it's like, oh, you can throw things and you should do that. And I was like, oh, throwing things. I didn't think about that this entire game. But I had like, I don't know, it might pop up. I had like 75 of these like throwing gears. And I did not grind in this game like at all. But just like interactions with different characters, like there was one character where I went and she was just standing in front of a lift and she's like, oh, stalker, go ahead up there and like be careful, crazy stuff's happening at the church. And then I came back later because I was trying to find one of these cryptic things, and I was like, oh, hey, what's up? And she's like, oh, hello, stalker, I'm glad things are going well for you. And I did something where she's like, wait a second, you're a puppet. And then boss fight started, and I was like, oh, that's cool, that's very good, right? And just a lot of that kind of like the world building and then the interactions between different characters, and it all just felt very smooth. It felt natural. The kind of twist at the end with Giorgio being like P essentially was very interesting, and like the like after credits for like the sequel, I was like, oh, excellent, that'd be fantastic. And then if you get on Reddit and just look up like the endings and stuff, you can see some very interesting commentary. I disagree with most of it. I disagree with a certain segment of most of it. When people are talking about like the next expansion or the sequel, and how the main character of this game could be like the Tin Man from the next game, it's like, yeah, I don't think that's what's you're supposed to really get across here. If the humanity ending is like the correct ending, because he's a human, he already has a heart. Maybe it's based on the bad ending. I don't know. We'll see someday when it comes out eventually. But I feel like it's like more leaps. But the last thing I kind of want to just reminisce on is the name. All right, so Lies of P. So, and I didn't see anyone else with this theory, but my theory is that Lies of P has nothing to do with Pinocchio whatsoever. I mean, the story is obviously a riff on Pinocchio. But we find out that Giorgio's real name is, I can't remember, but it starts with a P. And he's been lying to everybody the whole time. Like, this whole thing was like a big scam, essentially. Like, it's like, we're like, oh, Geppetto was like masterminding this, but it's like, actually, the alchemists led by, or this whole thing was ran by P to like, because he calls it an experiment. He's like, oh, experiment did well. And then we have, this like worked out. So this whole time, this guy's like bullshitting everybody and kind of like in control of this whole thing. And you get some of that when he's like, oh, I'm like just a pharmacist and yada, yada, yada. And then you're trying to find a cure for the lady of the hotel for her puppet friend. And you go talk to him and he's like, oh yeah, I got a cure right here. Here you go. It's like, fuck. Because it's like, aren't you suffering from this? So it's like in a moment of like non-clarity, it seems, on his end, he like spilled the beans a little bit on like who he actually is. And like, there's like more going on there, because it's like, wait a second, I don't understand. Why don't I use this? So unless I'm missing something completely, but so he's not a bad guy per se, it seems so far. but it's like this whole, there's a lot of stuff going behind the scenes. And so the Lies of P, you know, it's like to me, it's like, it's not actually the Lies of Pinocchio. Because again, no one ever calls him Pinocchio. They call him my son. They call him this. They call him that. Like, you could even go, like, they call him Puppet sometimes. Like, maybe Lies of the Puppet. Puppet Lies. But no one calls him Pinocchio. So people keep talking about, oh, Pinocchio here. The main character is Pinocchio. And I'm like, I mean, they don't call him Pinocchio. And the game's not called Pinocchio. There's no reason, besides the fact that, you know, we all know this. We're all familiar with the story of Pinocchio to call him Pinocchio. And I wonder, and I kind of get the vibe that that's intentional. Because it's not that he's not Pinocchio, but it's like when you're talking about the Lies of P, the idea is that it's like the whole game is like based around lies. Like people lying to you, you lying to them, you lying to people for their benefit, you lying to people for their problems. Sophia kind of lies to you, Geppetto lies to you. I mean, Simon Magus is like the only one who tells the truth to your face, 100%. Veniti kind of lies to you. Like, I mean, the puppets are the only ones who kind of like, the puppets seem to be the only ones who tell the truth. Right? So it's like it's the reverse. So when you're talking about the Lies of P, it's like the puppets, besides Pinocchio, are the only ones who tell the truth because they can. And then all the humans obviously are lying, like almost constantly, to you about stuff. So, yeah. And so when it's like the Lies of P, I'm like, I don't think it's talking about you being like the liar, like the Lies of Pinocchio. I think it's the lies of this guy and like this whole set of events. It's like if you're gonna have a sequel, it would just be Lies of P2 because it has nothing to do with Pinocchio being, you know. It's the lies that are crafted by this other guy. That's my theory for it. And for like the 22 of you who actually hear this video who know what I'm talking about here, maybe you'll be interested. But yeah, that's my general thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to the expansion and the sequel. I know I read somewhere the expansion's like already like getting done. Like it may be out this year, if not early next year. And then the sequel's also being worked on, so that's cool. Again, I wish I just like took that save file and like moved it over somewhere instead of just deleting everything in like my haste to like I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, all right, cool, I gotta move on. I don't want to keep playing. I got so many other things to do. But yeah, really fun time with this and looking forward to more of it. And I will definitely pull it up and do like a part or two or when that happens. But highly recommend it. Even if you're not super into, you know, Soulsborne-y games, if you like adventure, if you like kind of like an action role-playing game, like a Secret of Mana, or if you just like action games generally, and you're willing to like put in a little bit of work, I'd say it's pretty good. And I would say it's one of the smoother entries in this genre to just kind of like sit down and start picking up and playing. Like, I really didn't feel that much pushback from any, like, occasionally I would take a boss, would take a couple rounds, but that's nothing. That is absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, cool. Well, catch y'all later.
I have a final report on the Krat experiment.
You certainly took your time, Paracelsus. Your findings?
I think we have a new brother. A new type of humanity, so to speak.
There are many forms of eternal life.
It's intriguing and worth further observation.
Noted. And we'll have to get his arm back anyway.
I'm counting on it. Expect another report at the next meeting. Paracelsus returning. Ah, and when I return, I will find her. For sure. Another key of ours, Dorothy.